We will soon begin the 11th High-Level Forum on Korea-Caribbean Partnership. If you're still standing outside, please take your seats, and once everyone is seated, we will begin. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for taking precious time out of your busy schedules to join us for the 11th High-Level Forum on Korea-Caribbean Partnership. Please allow me to introduce myself. My name is Ho Mi-sorang, and it's an absolute honor and delight to be serving as your MC. Please let me greet you in the traditional Korean way. 안녕하세요. 반갑습니다.
Nice to meet you, everyone.
Thank you very much. Now, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, today's forum will be held in a dual hybrid format with, as you can see, on-site participants here in Seoul, and we also have experts, industry experts, government officials, and Korean ambassadors to Caribbean nations joining us online. And also today's forum is being broadcast live on YouTube through the Ministry of Foreign Affairs Latin Square channel. So without further ado, let us begin the 11th High-Level Forum on the Korea-Caribbean Partnership. 먼저 최종건 외교부 1차관님의 개회사가 있겠습니다. First, we have the opening speech by His Excellency Choi Jong-gon, the first Vice Minister of Foreign Affairs here in the Republic of Korea. Please greet him with a big round of applause.
Her Excellency Rita Tusey, Permanent Secretary at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Trinidad and Tobago, Her Excellency Carla Barnett, Secretary General of CARICOM, His Excellency Rodolphe Sabonghe, Secretary General of the ACS, government representatives from the Caribbean region, representatives of the Diplomatic Corps, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. This is Choi Jong-gon, First Vice Minister of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. I'd like to extend my warm welcome to all of you to the 11th High-Level Forum on the Korea-Caribbean Partnership. I would especially like to thank the participants from the Caribbean states, member states, and regional organizations who have traveled a long distance to attend the forum in person. And personally, it is my great pleasure to be able to address the forum this year as I did last year. The High-Level Forum was established in 2011 to promote friendship and cooperation between Korea and the Caribbean, and it has grown into a successful dialogue platform. It has contributed to expanding substantial cooperation through constructive discussions on various areas, including e-government, marine ecosystem conservation, renewable energy, and tourism. Development cooperation projects, including the CARICOM e-government project and the IT expert special training program, have helped strengthen the human and institutional capacities of the Caribbean region. As I promised at the 10th Forum, as the Vice Minister of the Foreign Affairs, the Korean CARICOM Cooperation Fund has been established this year, and I'm very pleased that the fund has been used for CARFAS to carry out a project to strengthen the health system to respond to infectious diseases in the region. The growth of the High-Level Forum has been made possible thanks to the accumulated confidence in the potential for meaningful cooperation between the two sides. The Korean government will remain a strong partner in the process of realizing the vision of the Caribbean community. Ladies and gentlemen, the Caribbean is faced with two grave challenges, which are the pandemic and the climate change. In March this year, in the dialogue with the Caribbean, the GCF Secretary General said that the Caribbean region is in the front line of our fight against climate change, and the IMF said that the region has been hit hardest by the pandemic. And according to the IMF, this Caribbean region would be able to recover from the pandemic only in 2023. As such, there have been setbacks in the effort to achieve the CARICOM single market and economy. However, the Caribbean has a proud history of transforming themselves to overcome these challenges. The region has overcome the colonial rule, chaos, and division, and has successfully formed a strong community with an integrated identity. It has transformed its agriculture-based economy into an economy driven by tourism, finance, and maritime logistics. And now this region is pursuing free trade and a single market to achieve economies of scale. Therefore, the pandemic and climate change can offer new opportunities for the future-oriented transformation. The theme of the high-level forum is digital and green transition, which should be our top priority policy agenda for sustainable growth and prosperity of the Caribbean region. This region is also presenting a desirable roadmap. I fully support the message of the 17th Caribbean Internet Governance Forum held in August that the post-pandemic economic recovery of the region should be driven by ICT. I also respect the region's effort to create a single ICT space among the Caribbean countries that promote an integrated digital governance based on global standards. Since the 1950s, Korea has constantly identified and developed new growth engines by shifting from agriculture to light industries, transitioning from light industries to heavy and chemical industries, and then achieving ICT innovation. Based on such experience and technology, Korea wishes to help the Caribbean region create an innovative single market after the pandemic. Furthermore, Korea announced the Green New Deal as part of the Korean New Deal in 2020 and contributed to the global effort to respond to climate change by hosting the P4G summit in May. We're working towards 2050 carbon neutrality by utilizing the accumulated climate change-related technologies. The ROK Ministry of Foreign Affairs recognizes that the climate situation in the Caribbean region is extremely relevant to all of us, including all Koreans, and we want to address the situation together with the Caribbean states. At today's forum, the presenters from the Korea Meteorological Administration, the Green Technology Center, and the Rural Development Administration are going to offer practical and realistic blueprints for the Korea-Caribbean cooperation. And I expect that we will be able to come up with ideas to utilize the ROK CARICOM Cooperation Fund. Ladies and gentlemen, CARICOM was established in 1973 at Chagaramas in Trinidad and Tobago. And since then, CARICOM has been pursuing the vision of integration by accepting 9 newly independent states. Celebrating its 50th anniversary in 2023, CARICOM will be able to reflect on the past 5 decades and draw a new blueprint for the next 5 decades. Korea wants to be a close partner in drawing up this new chapter for CARICOM. Once again, I'd like to thank all the participants for attending the 11th High-Level Forum, and I hope that the presentations and discussions will give us much inspiration for our friendship and cooperation. I promise that the Korean government will seriously reflect on the outcomes of the forum and act on them. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency Choi Jong-gon, for your warm words and the opening address. 네, 계속해서 로돌포 사봉해 카리브 국가연합 사무총장님의 환영사가 있겠습니다. Continuing on, we have the welcoming address by His Excellency Rodolfo Sabonghe, the Secretary General of the Association of Caribbean States. We ask for your attention to the screen.
His Excellency Choi Jong-kun, First Vice Minister, Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Korea. Her Excellency Carla Barnett, Secretary General, Caribbean Community, CARICOM. Representatives of member states of the Greater Caribbean, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. It is an honor to address you today at this 11th high-level forum on the Republic of Korea-Caribbean Partnership. I would like to take this opportunity to extend warm congratulations to the government of the Republic of Korea for hosting this important event. Indeed, this forum marks the importance of a mutually beneficial partnership among our countries, which has facilitated substantive cooperation in several areas, including climate change, food security, and most recently, the COVID-19 pandemic. As we look towards a comprehensive alliance between Korea and the Caribbean and the establishment of a sustainable cooperative system, we recall with satisfaction Korea's commitment to the region. The Sandy Shorelines Project, funded by the Korean International Cooperation Agency, KOICA, and led by the Association of Caribbean States, is a clear example. The objective of this project is to improve the resilience of coastal communities to climate change and sea level rise through the establishment of a regional erosion monitoring network and sharing of beach rehabilitation, observation, and preservation best practices. To date, 9 Caribbean countries have been beneficiaries of coastal monitoring equipment, coastal monitoring training, and beach rehabilitation exercises. Now, more than ever, we require scientific knowledge and cross-cutting technologies to combat the climate crisis and safeguard the lives and livelihoods of the Caribbean people. The Association of Caribbean States stands ready to contribute to the comprehensive partnership between the Republic of Korea and the Greater Caribbean. At this point, it is important to remember what we refer to as the Greater Caribbean. The ACS membership includes 4 groups of countries: CARICOM, Central America, the G3, which includes Mexico, Colombia, and Venezuela, and the non-group, Cuba, Panama, and the Dominican Republic. And among our associates, we have 10 territories, some French and others Dutch. From 2022, the ACS will focus on a new action plan, which will be submitted and approved at a summit of heads of state, planned now to take place in Mexico around the end of March, beginning of April, to which Korea will be invited in its observer capacity. The new action plan is focused on post-COVID recovery, achieving the Sustainable Development Goals, and seeking to build resilience to withstand the impact of climate change. Post-COVID recovery requires the strengthening of regional competitive and comparative advantages, and that will require improving transport and digital connectivity in the region. Recovery also involves reviving the tourism sector, one of the pillars of the region's economy. This also requires digital transformation and the implementation of health and security measures to rebuild trust on behalf of tourists. To do this, we can implement cooperation projects such as the development of maritime transport and logistics strategy for the Greater Caribbean and the strategy to improve air connectivity and sustainable tourism. Achieving the Sustainable Development Goals is a major undertaking. For this, we need to standardize indicators, develop and implement data collection, and for that, we want to develop an observatory to be able to make decisions and policy based on data and relevant information. This will allow us to build greater resilience to threats, but also improve readiness to take advantage of opportunities, which also require technical capabilities in competitive and business intelligence that would provide for better understanding of the market drivers for each of the relevant sectors that we have mentioned. Building resilience in light of climate change is our top priority. We need to develop and implement strategies and tools to help the region manage the Caribbean Sea in all respects. The Caribbean Sea is one of the richest regions in the world in terms of biodiversity and resources. This needs to be managed in a sustainable manner, which include the implementation of policies and measures to protect the environment, prevent contamination and pollution, become carbon neutral or negative, manage waste, but also adapt to the inevitable impact of natural phenomena, in many respects a consequence of climate change, such as rising temperature and sea level, and changes in the weather patterns. Implementation of monitoring and preventive measures also requires technical and specialized telecommunications and information technologies. All of these initiatives can only be developed with international cooperation, both financial and technical, and with capacity building. We live in the information age, and as we all know, information is power. As such, the ACS seeks to provide its membership with empirical data to enhance the decision-making process for formulating, implementing, and evaluating sustainable development policies. To this end, we are convinced that the development of the ACS Observatory not only will allow us to strengthen our ties with strategic partners such as Korea, but it will also give us a tool to strengthen multilateralism in the region. Your Excellencies, as you can see, the challenges are enormous, but we are convinced that with these proposals, we are laying the foundations to face the collective adversities that we are all facing. We look forward to continued partnership with you as we seek to strengthen the Greater Caribbean. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. 계속해서 리타 투산, 트리니다드 토바고 외교 차관님의 축사가 있겠습니다. Her Excellency Rita Tucson, Permanent Secretary at the Ministry of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs of Trinidad and Tobago, will deliver the congratulatory address. Everyone, please welcome Her Excellency Rita Tucson.
Your Excellency, Choi Jung-kun, Vice Minister of Foreign Affairs for the Republic of Korea, Your Excellency, Dr. Carla Barnett, Secretary General of the Caribbean Community, Your Excellency, Rodolfo Sabonghe, Secretary General of the Association of Caribbean States, Your Excellency, Francois Jackman, Permanent Representative of Barbados to the United Nations in New York, and that is Permanent Representative of the newest republic in the world. Congratulations. Your Excellency, Alison Stone Ruth, Undersecretary for Multilateral Affairs, Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade of Jamaica, moderators, presenters, attendees and viewers, officials of the Ministries of Foreign Affairs of Korea and of Caribbean countries, good morning. It is a pleasure to also congratulate the government of the Republic of Korea on the hosting of the 11th High-Level Forum on the Republic of Korea Caribbean Partnership, particularly since the world was obliged to abandon most such in-person activity for over a year and a half in favor of online engagement. It also comes at a time when a new strain of the COVID-19 pandemic threatens even our current approximate normalcy. And this is a most sobering fact for all of us. But before I deliver my congratulatory message, Vice Minister, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I bring greetings on behalf of the government of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago and express appreciation for the excellent arrangements and for very warm hospitality of the government of the Republic of Korea as host of this forum. Thank you, sir. For almost 11 consecutive years, this high-level forum has been held in Korea with the exception of the session held in 2017 in Jamaica and last year's meeting which had to be held virtually. The consistent convening of the forum points to the commitment of the Korean government to molding, nurturing, and fortifying its relationship with the Caribbean region. Often, the value of such meetings is underestimated. Far from being mere rhetoric, events like this forum provide the opportunity for learning, exchange, dialogue, and most importantly, joint action. And I must underscore that all of us, whether attending in person or viewing online, have responsibility to ensure that the knowledge that is shared and or gained at this forum is used appropriately and brings tangible benefit to all of our stakeholders. Since its inception, the High-Level Forum has explored issues of importance to all of its partners, ranging from development strategy and food security to renewable energy and e-government. This year's focus on climate change, natural disasters, and sustainable use of the Korea-Caribbean Cooperation Fund again places emphasis on mitigating shared challenges and collaborating for mutually beneficial solutions. The timing of this meeting could not be more fortuitous, coming on the heels of the COP26 summit in Glasgow. As we know, the entire international community has to work together on the climate change challenge, and the outcome of this meeting will be one of the many efforts in that regard. Both climate change and the natural disasters are issues of existential importance to Caribbean countries, all of which are vulnerable, and even more so, small island developing states. The newly established Korea-Caribbean Cooperation Fund has great potential for considerable regional impact, with projects identified by the CARICOM Secretariat as potential beneficiaries. Even in its nascent state, the Cooperation Fund has already approved the allocation of $500,000 to a project of the Caribbean Public Health Agency to address the management of infectious disease, as His Excellency has mentioned this morning. And I must say that this is a most timely intervention indeed. Today's event is only one example of cooperation between Korea and the Caribbean, the beginnings of which can be traced to over 7 decades ago. In most recent years, there have been exchanges on emergency support, elections management, governance, and information and communications technology, a few of which were initiated based on discussions at a high-level forum. In the midst of the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic, Korea provided much-needed financial and technical resources to assist individual Caribbean countries and regional institutions. Such cooperation has been woven into the fabric of bilateral ties pursued through Korean diplomatic posts in the region. And this has had a focus on enhanced cultural appreciation, educational opportunities, commercial ties, and technical assistance. I commend the government of Korea for maintaining and indeed heightening its level of engagement through the hosting of this 11th Korea-Caribbean Countries Forum and participating governments. In conclusion, I wish to thank once again the government of the Republic of Korea for hosting this event and for its efforts to ensure the safety and comfort of all participants. I pray that today's meeting is a success, and may the partnership between the Caribbean and the Republic of Korea continue to be strengthened through this high-level forum. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, for your warm words in the congratulatory address. Now, we will take a moment to take some commemorative photographs to mark this occasion. And for that, I would like to invite His Excellency Choi Jong-gon, Her Excellency Rita Tusong once again, His Excellency Francois Jackman, as well as all moderators and panelist speakers for both session 1 and 2 to please come up to the stage. Going to take 2 shots. The first shot with our masks on, and the second
like a
one
circle
with
that
our
forms
masks.
a harmonious entity of endless movements and changes. We have written a new history upon facing every crisis without hesitation, encountering new challenges with unity and reconciliation. Korea is a country with infinite possibilities. Our progress that has never stopped is moving toward the year 2030 for an encounter with the whole world. Out on the vast ocean, there is a light in the darkness. At the end of the sea, where the light emerges, lies Busan, an open city and the gateway to a continent. As a city with multiple cultures, we will always embrace a new vision and dream of harmony and coexistence to create a strong and wise society. Fearless in the face of change, Busan is tearing down geographical and cultural boundaries for an affluent and innovative era of convergence. We will share our wisdom from the past with the whole world and wait for a future where we can craft solutions and share life's lessons together. We are building the future for everyone today. Tolerance, peace, and wisdom. These are the values that we want to share with everyone. A coming together of people from all over the world for the coexistence and prosperity of the human race. South Korea's Busan would like to join in to create a new beginning.
World Expo 2030, where all countries will agree to cooperate and act on the great transition to an era of sustainability. Busan, Korea, a World Expo 2030 candidate city, will open a sustainable future for humanity and planet Earth. Korea, a country that made the impossible possible.
Korea, which was receiving aid, has been transformed into a developed country
And remarkably advanced from one of the world's poorest countries to a developed country in just a little more than a half century. The world's 10th largest economy, a leader in the fourth industrial revolution with innovative technologies, and home of highly valuable global brands. This is Korea. At the center of Korea's economic growth, there is Busan. From a shelter for war refugees to a cradle for future industries of the world and Korea, Busan has played a key role in driving national economic growth. A World Expo 2030 candidate city, Busan, Korea, will be a bridge between developing and developed countries for understanding and coexistence. Busan, Korea is setting a new global standard for soft power.
The courage of journalists who did not turn a blind eye to the truth has led
Korea is widely recognized for its soft power in many areas, including press freedom and Korean culture. Busan is at the epicenter of Korean soft power. It is a city of K-content, culture that represents Korea, and is emerging as a global hub of arts and culture for the future. Busan, Korea hopes to extend the value and share the experience of soft power with the world through World Expo 2030. A gateway city connecting Eurasia and the Pacific, and the world by sea and sky. A center of global logistics and cultural exchange, a beloved marine tourism city, and a favorite of the MICE industry. In 2030, a new future of humanity and planet Earth will unfold. A great transformation where dreams come true and despair turns into hope begins here in Busan, Korea. Sustainable living with nature, technology for humanity, and platform for caring and sharing all start here. Busan, Korea will take the lead at the forefront of transformation to a brighter future. Transforming our world, navigating toward a better future. World Expo 2030, Busan, Korea.
Okay, we will now begin our keynote presentations. For the first one, Her Excellency Dr. Carla Barnett, Secretary General of CARICOM, will share her insight on the Korea-Caribbean Digital and Green Innovation Partnership in the post-COVID-19 era. So, let's see if we are connected. Dr. Carla Barnett.
Your Excellency Cho Yong-kun, First Vice Minister, Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Korea, Honorable Ministers of CARICOM governments and the Republic of Korea, Your Excellency Rodolfo Sabonghe, Secretary General, Association of Caribbean States, distinguished speakers and participants, representatives on the media, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It is my pleasure to share a few thoughts with you today on Korea-Caribbean Digital and Innovation Partnership in the post-COVID era. Let me begin by thanking the Republic of Korea for its continuing commitment to the Caribbean region by working with us to keep this forum alive for the past 10 years. The interests of both parties ensures that it is a sustained, mutually beneficial partnership. Korea has been instrumental in the development of the CARICOM e-government strategy and the requisite training of CARICOM government officials on e-governance and business process re-engineering. In reflecting and responding to the theme of this discourse, the clear assumption is that COVID-19 will be with us for some time, having an impact on social and economic activity and the functioning of the eventual post-COVID society. The virus's decimation of much of our economies has caused us to take a renewed look at our processes in both the private and the public sectors, and has put a premium on innovation and creativity. And what the past 20 months have taught us is that to do so entails much greater utilization of digital technology. Digitalization has become a key pillar of government policy as nations globally struggle to prop up COVID-19 impacted economies. However, it brings with it the dangers presented by the digital divide. This highlights the gulf between those countries that have successfully navigated the increased use of digital technology and those that have not and are being left behind. Within countries, the impact is also manifesting itself particularly in the education system. In our community, for example, there are significant numbers of children without access to the internet and suitable digital devices, leaving them at a severe disadvantage due to the shift to online schooling because of the pandemic. The pandemic also fueled a rise in technology sovereignty and onshoring initiatives. The emergence of elements such as a Korea cloud and a European cloud are causing shifts in the dominance of technology giants. CARICOM is developing a cloud strategy, both in keeping with emerging technologies and as a critical move to protect the region's data assets from future disasters. The region welcomes Korea's support in developing the infrastructure. There is no doubt that technological development is going to have a massive impact on developing country economies. The speed with which scientific and technological innovation is taking place is unrelenting. The global marketplace is becoming more digital, and businesses must evolve to stay competitive. Small and medium-sized firms in the economy are not just the major employers, but the seedbed for disruptive technologies and future innovation-fueled growth. Insufficient diffusion of new technologies has been quoted as one possible reason for weak productivity in developing countries such as those in CARICOM over the past 2 decades. Governments must be the facilitator, enabling business and consumers to adapt to the demands and opportunities of the new global economy. A forward-looking approach to resilience requires increasing the efficiency of government. There is a need for robust, reliable, 24/7 hardware and software with the requisite applications to drive and maintain efficiency and effectiveness. It is clear to us in CARICOM that we must design new strategies which enforce the benefits of integrated solutions and engage our citizenry, both at home and in the diaspora. These strategies cannot be implemented without the help of strategic investment partners, both domestic and foreign. In this regard, I make the following proposals for consideration in the sessions today and for the work program of the forum before our next meeting in 2022. I endorse Vice Minister Choi's suggestion of supporting the Caribbean region's economic and social development through the ROK CARICOM Cooperation Fund. Through it, we will seek tailored cooperation projects using the Korean New Deal. In this regard, I wish to urge the scheduling of technical level meetings in the first and second quarters of 2022 to identify and define research and development projects which can help the region adopt and implement new software or platforms and better respond to the prevailing and future needs in climate change, agriculture, healthcare, youth development, finance, and government. The projects need to focus on digital technology infusion and explore the opportunities for interlinked sectoral interventions and outcomes. I also urge that we begin the groundwork for launching a virtual innovation lab between CARICOM and the Republic of Korea. That would focus on a portfolio of collaborative research and development projects between Korea and CARICOM for completion by 2025. It would focus on initiatives to drive innovation in CARICOM and support the establishment of innovation hubs with requisite technical and computing capacity in each CARICOM country to put a spotlight on innovation and provide support for youth entrepreneurship, as well as a space for inventors, entrepreneurs, individual achievers, and technical experts in their fields and super mentors. In the Republic of Korea, CARICOM could not have a better partner in driving this transformation. The country has been ranked in the top 5 countries in the Global Innovation Index 2021 and has distinguished itself in digital and government transformation. CARICOM is ready to collaborate, having responsive governments, specialized regional agencies, informed citizenry, and a large creative youth population. With strategic committed partners like Korea, this could drive a new paradigm and advance the sustainable development of our community. In closing, I wish to confirm the region's continuing support for this forum and the cooperation between the countries of the region and the Republic of Korea. My best wishes for a productive session today, and I look forward to advancing the proposals made here today in 2022. I thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. It is time for our second keynote presentation, and for that I have the honor of introducing His Excellency Francois Jackman, Ambassador and Permanent Representative of the Permanent Mission of Barbados to the United Nations. Please welcome him with a big round of applause.
Of the Republic of Korea, distinguished colleagues from the Caribbean, members of the Diplomatic Corps, friends, ladies and gentlemen. Let me begin by expressing, on behalf of the government of Barbados, my appreciation for the excellent arrangements that have been made to organize this event in these difficult times and to facilitate our participation. This is, as my colleague from Trinidad and Tobago mentioned earlier, an indication of the importance the Korean authorities attach to their relationship with the Caribbean, and of this, my government is truly appreciative. I also take this opportunity to note that Barbados and the Republic of Korea established diplomatic relations almost exactly 44 years ago, and that we have much to celebrate together as this relationship has grown and matured over 4.5 decades of friendship. Before I address the substance of the agenda item, permit me to make a brief national detour. I have the honor today to represent my minister, Senator Dr. the Honorable Jerome Walcott, who was unable to be here in person. The main reason for his absence is that yesterday, Barbados celebrated 55 years of independence, and simultaneously, we made a historic change in our governance arrangements. Barbados transitioned peacefully, harmoniously, democratically, from being a parliamentary monarchy to being, like the Republic of Korea, a parliamentary republic. This is for us an important moment in our journey of independence, nationhood, and sovereignty, and we cherish our ability to do so with friends to support us. Today, we have a Barbadian non-executive head of state who, like our head of government, is also a woman. This makes Barbados one of the very few countries whose head of state and head of government are both women. But back to the subject at hand. I have been asked today to speak on the topic of Caribbean-Korea future cooperation for sustainable development. This is a very broad subject, and with your permission, I will focus on 3 specific items. First, consultation and coordination within the United Nations and other multilateral fora. You will forgive me if, coming from my posting to the UN in New York, I start off by speaking about collaboration in this context. I only speak for Barbados, but based on my observation, I think I can say without fear of contradiction that on the whole, the countries of the Caribbean community and the Republic of Korea see eye to eye on an overwhelming majority of issues that are dealt with within multilateral fora. We should build more on this natural convergence and enhance our consultation and coordination. There are several areas where this could take place: consultation on candidatures, coordination on key issues, and other areas, such as the implementation of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. My Caribbean colleagues are going to talk about this in greater detail, but I think it's very important to focus in on what we can do together in the implementation of the 2030 Agenda. Secondly, regional cooperation. We have just heard from the distinguished Secretaries General of the Association of Caribbean States and of the Caribbean Community, so I will not repeat what they have said. Simply to emphasize the following: Caribbean countries are fairly small, fairly close together geographically. We share many elements of history, language, society, and economy, and we try, wherever we can, to do things together. In pursuit of this goal, the Caribbean has developed a broad range of regional institutions, some of which we have heard from already, some of which are represented here today, and some of which we will hear from later this morning. These regional institutions provide essential public goods and services to the region. They have excellent governance and implementation records and are ideal cooperation partners as the region and Korea seek together to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. Barbados and other countries represented here today, we value the bilateral relationship we have with the Republic of Korea, but systematic collaboration between Caribbean regional bodies and their Korean counterparts could really take this relationship to an entirely new level. Thirdly, I would like to discuss the question of vulnerability and the existential crisis that states like mine are dealing with in the face of the triple challenges of COVID-19, climate change, and finance. Some of you may be aware that my Prime Minister, the Honorable Mia Amor-Motley, has been championing this issue at home and on the global stage. Whether it was during the high-level segment of the UN General Assembly in September or during COP26 in November, Her message in this regard has been clear. The time has come for the international financial architecture to be revised to protect and enable rather than penalize those countries like my own that are most vulnerable to and have already been afflicted by climate change. This reshaping is multifaceted and urgent. G20 countries, like the Republic of Korea, have a leading role to play in this regard. Some of the key elements of this reform system include the use of a multidimensional vulnerability index, and not just gross domestic product per capita measurement of wealth, a meaningful scaling up of climate finance for adaptation and mitigation, an International Monetary Fund Sustainability Trust utilizing special drawing rights, a restructuring of pandemic-related debt measurements that better reflects the vulnerability of countries. These and related issues are of the highest priority for Barbados and Caribbean countries and for small island developing states in general. In closing, Your Excellencies, I want to acknowledge and express Barbados's appreciation for the important role that the Republic of Korea is already playing in all of these areas through its actions nationally, bilaterally, and through its valuable contributions to numerous international efforts and organizations such as the Green Climate Fund, which is headquartered here in Seoul. Finally, as we discuss and exchange ideas today, it is essential that we keep our attention riveted on the future, in particular, how we translate today's words into tomorrow's actions. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. And we will now begin our sessions. Session 1 will be held under the theme of Strengthening Republic of Korea Caribbean Cooperation to Respond to Climate Change. And this session will be moderated by Mr. Choi Jong-uk, Director General of the Latin American and Caribbean Affairs Bureau at the Korean Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Please welcome him with a big round of applause. Thank you very much, Director General. And our panelists. So first of all, joining us online, we have Her Excellency Alison Stone Roof, Ambassador, Undersecretary for Multilateral Affairs at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade in Jamaica. So, Your Excellency, are you able to hear me? While we are waiting for that connection, we will continue introducing our on-site panelists. So here on site, we have Ms. Ana Ramirez, Director for Disaster Risk Reduction, Environment and the Caribbean Sea, ACS. Please give her a warm hand. Thank you very much. And from Korea, we have Dr. Lee Yong-sub, Director of International Cooperation Division at the Korea Meteorological Administration. Please give him a big hand. And we have Dr. Kim Hyung-ju, Director General of the Green Technology Center. Please welcome Dr. Kim Hyung-ju. And now I will pass the mic over to our Chair, Director General Choi Jong-uk. The floor is yours. So you may remove your masks.
Good morning. I would like to welcome all of you to the 11th High-Level Forum on the Korean-Caribbean Partnership. I will be chairing the first session. I am Director General of the Latin American and Caribbean Affairs Bureau at the Foreign Affairs Ministry. And it's a great pleasure to be with you. I'd like to thank all of you for being here, both on and offline. Now, the theme of the first session is strengthening ROK Caribbean cooperation to respond to climate change. We will be focusing on climate change and the various natural disasters that result from climate change. Now, these disasters have posed a great challenge to the Caribbean region even before the pandemic. Climate change and global warming have led to rising sea levels, which have hit the lands, the agricultural lands, and also have caused hurricanes. And as we have heard from our high-level officials in the opening ceremony and keynote speeches, such issues have been a great challenge. We will be hearing in this session from members representing both the Caribbean region and Korea. They represent governments and government cooperations as well as research centers. And so I'm sure that they have deep reflections on these related issues, as well as how Korea and the Caribbean region have cooperated. I'm sure that they will be sharing with us a lot of meaningful insights that they have accumulated during their careers. So first, when we think of Bob Marley or Usain Bolt, when we hear of this country, Jamaica, and representing Jamaica, we will be hearing from Her Excellency Alison Stone Roof, the Ambassador, Undersecretary for Multilateral Affairs at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade at Jamaica. Let us get her online.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, let me first extend Jamaica's appreciation to the Republic of Korea for its continued engagement with the region through various initiatives, including these high-level forums, which are now in their 11th session. Jamaica values the partnership with the Republic of Korea and looks forward to its enhancement. It is my task to share with you this morning some views from the perspective of Jamaica on the Caribbean's main challenges for responding to climate change and natural disasters. Due to our size and location, Caribbean's small island developing states, SIDS, are particularly susceptible to the impacts of climate change. As developing economies relying on sectors vulnerable to climate patterns such as tourism, agriculture and fishing, our countries are significantly affected by the ongoing rise in sea levels, changes in rain patterns and temperatures, and the increasing intensity of natural disasters identified by the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the IPCC. In the case of Jamaica specifically, there are adverse effects on critical sectors such as freshwater resources, coastal and marine resources, human settlements and infrastructure, terrestrial resources, and biodiversity, agriculture, fisheries, tourism, human health, and energy. To be clear, there are many differences among Caribbean nations given our geographic locations, topography, and natural resources. Notwithstanding these differences, however, climate change poses a serious threat to us all. According to the IPCC, average temperatures in the region have increased by 0.1 degrees to 0.2 degrees Celsius per decade over the past 3 decades. Rainfall patterns have shifted in the region, with the number of consecutive dry days expected to increase. Additionally, sea level rise has occurred at a rate of about 2 to 4 centimeters per decade over the past 33 years, a trend which presents clear risks to the region's freshwater resources and to its largely coastal population, dependent on tourism and agriculture. With global warming likely to reach 1.5 degrees Celsius between 2030 and 2052, if greenhouse gas emissions continue to increase at the current rate, the situation is dire for the Caribbean. This calculation of risk comes to us against the backdrop that SIDS have never been and are not the main contributors to global greenhouse gas emissions. In terms of addressing the threat of climate change to the Caribbean, the cost of inaction is high. According to the CARICOM Climate Change Center, 5 Cs, without resilience building through effective adaptation, damage from hurricanes, losses from declines in tourism, and damage to infrastructure due to sea level rise are projected to total US $22 billion annually by 2050 and US $46 billion annually by 2100, representing 10% and 22% of the Caribbean's GDP respectively. However, for Dominica, Grenada, Haiti, and St. Kitts and Nevis, costs of loss and damage in the same categories are projected to exceed 75% of national GDP by 2100. One does not need to be an economist to recognize that on our own and despite our best efforts, the region will not be in a position to respond to the pace and scale of the impacts of climate change on our lives and livelihoods. In this regard, we continue to advocate the special case of SIDS and the prioritization of SIDS for access to adequate and predictable climate finance for mitigation and adaptation action and for support to respond to loss and damage. SIDS, like our Caribbean nations, had looked forward to COP26 with anticipation for an agenda that would incorporate a number of critical issues, including those priorities carried over from COP25 that could produce meaningful results and targeted outcomes for us. Furthermore, climate change resources could help the region reduce its dependence on fossil fuels and exposure to our price variabilities with gains for climate change mitigation. Jamaica is acutely aware of how climate change threatens our country's development and well-being, as well as the economic security of our citizens. It is for this reason that we continue our calls for action towards protecting our planet and building resilience. Nationally determined contributions, NDCs, the agreement reached on the outstanding aspects of the Paris Rulebook relating to markets, transparency, and common timeframes are meaningful, as this will initiate the cycle of the global stocktake, which will also set the stage for further scaling up of ambition. The agreement on common timeframes for nationally determined contributions, NDCs in particular, is an important decision adopted at COP26. NDCs are the fundamental bases for increasing progressive mitigation ambition and achieving the objective of the Paris Agreement, which is critical to the Caribbean and to keeping 1.5 degrees Celsius alive. The synchronicity of the submission of NDCs with a common end time, a 5-year time frame, ensures that every party is expected to do the same thing at the same time. Jamaica has resolved and is committed to playing its part and has revised its own NDC. We are focusing on implementation. We have increased our ambition by including the land use, change, and forestry sector. The energy sector will continue to remain in the updated NDC, with the notion that the country will continue to deepen the emission reductions it delivers. Jamaica is also proud of its contribution so far as co-chair, along with the United Kingdom, of the National Determined Contribution Partnership goes. We take this opportunity to thank all parties for their continued commitment to this initiative, as this partnership has assisted many developing countries, including us in the Caribbean, with the implementation of their national climate plans and investment in climate-friendly technologies. On climate finance. Climate financing presents a need for a concerted effort to close the investment gap between adaptation and mitigation. Adaptation remains underfunded, accounting for only 21% of total public climate finance. Support for loss and damage responses remain uncertain, with donors hesitant to commit specific amounts. Climate financing has become even more difficult given the state of economies still grappling with the lingering effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. The OECD estimates that in 2018, SIDS received only 2% of total public climate finance provided and mobilized by developed countries, and that the proportion of this total made up of grants has dropped since 2013. In this same time period, SIDS have seen increasing debt burdens. During the pandemic, many confronted a potential debt crisis. According to analysis carried out by UNCTAD and ODI, between 2000 and 2019, the external debt of SIDS rose by 24% points of GDP, while in developing countries, debt fell by 6.2 points on aggregate. By 2019, external debt accounted for 62% of GDP on average in SIDS, compared with 29% for all developing countries and economies in transition. This has underscored the need for continued advocacy for debt relief, including for middle-income countries like ours, to enable SIDS to survive both the impacts of COVID-19 and climate change. SIDS continue to face constrained access to climate finance due to archaic or otherwise complex eligibility criteria, data capacity constraints, onerous and inflexible application and approval procedures, and overall high transactional costs. A harmonization of the processes for accessing funding is urgently needed, as well as the application of a vulnerability index. On disaster reduction, the links between climate change and disaster risk management and reduction cannot be overstated, and the inherent risks are becoming even more obvious each year. The Caribbean has year on year been experiencing greater frequency of storms and hurricanes, greater periods of sustained heavy rainfall, with the attendant damage it causes, the dislocation along coastlines brought about by heavy flooding, tide surges, and damage to the coastal ecosystems, which register heavily in terms of economic loss and damage to property and infrastructure. What we continue to experience, therefore, are not just weather events that cannot be predicted, but the excessive dislocation and damage due to their frequency and intensity means that economic growth and existing infrastructure can be demolished in any given hurricane season, which runs for half a year. If we use the current IPCC report presented prior to COP26, the correlation between climate change and the current types of natural disasters is clear and undeniable. The additional consequences to agriculture, infrastructure development and recovery of economic activities weigh heavily, therefore, on any government's financial resources and planning. The Caribbean reality, therefore, of a group of largely small island developing states with small land masses and concentrated economic activities around its coastlines and low-lying areas exposes our lives and livelihoods to a very unique set of challenges and by extension, the types of vulnerabilities that are not easily captured in any of the existing development metrics. We experience vulnerability to the extent where losses and damage can easily approximate or exceed our GDPs, as happened in the case of Dominica some years ago, and more recently with the Bahamas. All of these cases have borne out by the research done by the United Nations Economic Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean, ECLAC, which supports the need for a different set of measurements of vulnerability and its impact on accessing available financing. The size, propensity for rapid development, and extended width of the storms that now occur with greater frequency and intensity means that several islands are more likely to be affected in any one passage of storms or hurricanes. This impact on a timely relief response and an appropriate post-hurricane support system becomes even more challenging when the neighboring countries, which would be the first points of support, are also affected and have suffered similar levels of disruption to their structures and to their services. Recently, in early November this year, Jamaica served as the first Caribbean country to host the 7th Regional Platform for Disaster Risk Reduction in the Americas and the Caribbean. The event, which was deferred for over a year due to the pandemic, was eventually held in a fully virtual format with the support of the UN Disaster Risk Reduction Office, the UNDRR, and the Caribbean Disaster Emergency Management Agency, SIDEMA. With several events, including a youth forum, multiple sessions on disaster risk management and mitigation, and a dialogue with the private sector and civil society, it was evident that the paradigms associated with how we treat disasters, how countries prepare for and respond, how we build back better and stronger, all came sharply into focus in these discussions. The Declaration and Regional Action Plan, which emerged from the conference, set out a number of priorities that need to be addressed over time. I would like to highlight a few of the points made in the outcome document that would be appropriate for consideration in this context. Risk governance mechanisms must be strengthened, particularly in more vulnerable areas and with the full collaboration of all stakeholders. As a consequence, therefore, science-based and data-driven responses must guide decisions to be taken in response to threats and events in those areas. Secondly, updating of national plans and strategies in a coherent way with due consideration for climate and sustainable development plans must be a priority. There must be a whole of government, a whole of society approach to these issues to ensure that the government structure is adequately prepared and enabled to respond. Thirdly, government strategies must move to facilitate an environment which promotes collaboration with the private sector and the creation of resilient infrastructure as a base and which reduces the risks associated with public-private partnerships. We need to strengthen international cooperation to respond in very timely, tangible, and direct ways to the needs of countries affected by disasters. In this context, the work of offices like the UNDRR at the international level, and in our case, SIDEMA, will need to constantly engage with the development partners, the multilateral agencies, and other actors in this effort. Finally, investing in understanding and measuring disaster risk, strengthening our governance and management mechanisms, and enhancing our resilience all must be part of our current efforts to transform the way we approach our long-term development. In highlighting these few points, the context of our dialogue here allows some latitude to determine what more we can do to support this effort. The project resources in many ways are finite, and the mechanisms for access are increasingly burdensome when one considers the emergency nature of these required responses. Our responses, therefore, must fit the purpose and circumstances in order to achieve the types of responses we would need. On this matter, I would like to make a few points for consideration, and these points will clearly coincide with those made elsewhere and by other speakers. We need a coordinated approach to risk management, governance, and resilience. With that in mind, our partners need to be at the table to discuss, plan, and execute projects that best suit our conditions. We must reduce duplication of effort and drive the resources towards functional, timely project implementation. We must avoid the need for pilot and smaller projects when the region's priorities are best served by projects fit to scale. Responses and actions should match national and regional priorities and be built around scaling up solutions and responses that benefit the countries themselves. Over time, many assessments and reports on the challenges have been done at various levels, and we therefore must use existing data and evidence-based analytics to create more purpose-built solutions. Finally, the basis for all our actions at this level are essentially driven by our mantra to leave no one behind. To do that successfully, we need to have all resources on board, and so our inclusion of the financing institutions and private sector, which must be fully involved, needs to be a priority in our discussions. In closing, let me reiterate our appreciation to the Republic of Korea for its ongoing support for the region. The Republic of Korea is well positioned to help advance our priorities, and Jamaica looks forward to continued collaboration through CARICOM, the ACS, as well as AOSIS, as we work towards a shared, sustainable future with good health and economic viability in this multi-risk environment. I thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation. As she mentioned, in the Caribbean region, there are many small island developing states, and they are exposed to and vulnerable to all these climate challenges. And she also discussed the challenges with respect to climate finance. And based on all these points, she mentioned that there's an importance of efforts to build public partnership and also international efforts in the long run to develop these countries in the Caribbean region. Thank you for her comments. Let's move on to the second presentation. We have with us someone very special from the Caribbean region who has traveled to attend this forum. So we have with us Ms. Ana Ramirez, Director of Disaster Risk Reduction of the Environment and the Caribbean Sea of ACS. And she's going to be discussing resilience and responding to climate change and disaster. I would like to give you 20 minutes for your presentation. Welcome her with a big round of applause.
Thank you so much. Good morning, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of Rodolfo Sabonge, the Secretary General of the Association of Caribbean States, we really appreciate the opportunity to participate in this excellent forum and presenting how do we propose to face the climate change, how to increase the resilience and responding to the climate change and disasters in the Greater Caribbean. In general terms, we are going to start with a small context. Please, I invite you to think that our planet is alive. The Earth is made of different Earth layers, and between these layers, we have a lot of activity. Between hydrometeorological and geological activity, we are facing a lot of hazards. At present, our scientists had established that the age of the Earth is estimated at about 4.5 billion years. What does this mean? Well, unfortunately, the slide doesn't look good as it should be. But if we can compare 4.5 billion years with a human year, a natural year, from January to December, it might be like in the month of in the month of March, the rocks started to be created. The life started in the water, and it appeared in our Earth in the month of May. Between May and November, the life was developing in the water and came to the surface just in November. It will be like in December, at the middle of December, the dinosaurs will be in the Earth. In the last day of December, the humankind appear on our Earth, and it will be equal as America was discovered in the last minute of December the 31st. Why do I explain this? Because, there is nothing natural in disasters. The hazards are natural, and the disasters are man-made. I invite you to analyze this figure. In the superior part, you can see how nature behavior, the natural behavior. When we are in a dry season, we have a regular river, then the rainy season comes, the river increases, and it's a process, a continuous process. When the man tries to fight against nature instead of living with nature, then we are going to have disasters. A disaster is when a natural hazard meets a human population. But it doesn't mean that if we have tropical cyclones or earthquakes, the whole time will be a disaster. This is why I invite you to focus in this thing. There is nothing natural in disasters. The impact of the major disasters has been analyzed in the Regional Assessment Report on Disaster Risk in Latin America and the Caribbean. And as you can see, it doesn't matter in which agreement we can focus, the loss are increasing every 10 years. That's the period that we are measuring. And as you can see, the International Decade for Disaster Risk Reduction, we have some numbers, and they have been growing and growing and growing. And in this moment, we are in the middle of the Sendai framework, and the losses continue growing. Additional to that, there are established that natural and socio-natural hazards are interacting in a more common and frequent way. We need to focus in all of these hazards, because it's not only nature. We are facing different hazards, and we have to be ready for every single hazard. It's not only climate change. We need to talk about poverty. We need to talk about different hazards, not only the ones that come from nature, also those that we are creating as a society. Because the possibility of having more disasters is increasing. This risk is also increasing in the region's fastest growing and small and medium-sized cities. 80% of the disasters are happening in these kind of cities. And we should focus in doing something with the most vulnerable cities. And in Latin America and the Caribbean, in these cities live around 330 million of people. There are also mentions that the major effects of climate change that we are going to face is the increasing in fires. We are going to have also increasing of temperatures. We will face more flooding, also the water scarcity. Additional to this, we will face more and more pandemics. And as a consequence, we will have a huge mobility of people in the whole region. That is something that we are going to face, and we have to start to do something. As it has already been mentioned, the international community joined in the COP26. What did they do? They discussed about science. Finally, they are putting science in the right place. We need to focus in science and the solutions that they can give us to reduce the risk. They talk also about adaptation, mitigation, finance, technology transfer, capacity building, implementation, and collaboration. Unfortunately, they couldn't have an agreement related with loss and damage. And I said, unfortunately, because that is exactly what we need for disaster risk reduction. And we need to be clear that disaster risk reduction means that we should focus in progress without the destruction of the environment. The Sendai framework established in one way or another that we need to focus in environment. We should work with environment and live with nature, not against nature. We also need to move towards a resilient community. And the resilient communities in this time, well, as you can see, they should have a lot of characteristics, and we should invest a lot in these characteristics to improve them. And today, I invite you to focus in the number 9, effective preparedness, early warning, and responses. Why? Because ACS is proposing to transit from the MOUs of Memorandum of Understanding to MODUs. How can we change what we have been doing? How can we change from the desk to put boots on the ground? Our proposal is focused in 2 cooperation projects. The first one is related with the strengthening capacities for multi-hazard early warning service delivery in the Greater Caribbean region. And the second is related towards the sustainable development of the Caribbean Sea for present and future generations. This is a homework with a lot of time of delay, more than 20 years, and we have to do something now. A lot of people know that last October 13, we commemorate the International Disaster Day for Disaster Risk Reduction. This year, we try to reinforce the international cooperation for developing countries to reduce their disaster risk and disaster losses. Also, the objective was to become aware of the need to create regional and local collaboration strategies to reduce disaster risk. And what are we going to commemorate the next year? For next year, the target is sustainability increase, the availability and access to multi-hazard early warning systems and disaster risk information and assessment to people by 2030. What does this mean? That we should focus in a multi-early warning system that is integrated by 4 components. Every single component is necessary, and we need to have them as soon as possible. The disaster risk knowledge, as I have said, science. We need to focus in science. What kind of hazards are we facing? How can we know them, and what can we do? Not to avoid them, to live with them. The detection and monitoring. This is really important because someone has to identify when it's going to happen or what are we facing. To activate the 3rd component. This 3rd component is the dissemination and communication. This is not an easy work to do because it has to be handled by an authorized instance or authority. And they need to be accurate, real, and most important, the 4th component, the preparedness. This has to be in every single level. There is no government as big that can fix everything. People is the basis of everything. We need to empower people, and the only way to do it is working with with the communities. They need to have the knowledge to know what kind of hazards are they going to face, and how can they act? A little bit of information related with these early warning systems. You might remember the hurricanes Eta and Iota from November 2020, and they did a lot of damage in our region. Here you can see a couple of pictures related with two communities in Nicaragua and Honduras. These are vulnerable communities. And also the island of Providence, they suffer a lot. 95% of the infrastructure was destroyed. Additional to that, 98%. Additional to that, 95% of the population suffered some kind of damage. And no one of them knew what they were going to face. No one could tell them that a hurricane was coming. This is why we think that we can do a transfer infrastructure and capacities to guarantee resilience in communities that have previously been affected by hazards and caused disasters. How do we do that, or how do we propose to do this? We want to install and train in the use of community systems of multi-alert diffusion with local control to give warnings before, during, and after the occurrence of a disturbing phenomena. Additional to that, it can be only the installing. We need to focus in training the general population to identify the risk according to the type of disturbing phenomena. This is why we should focus in local. We are proposing an initial investment of $10 million to install 150 towers for multi-alert diffusions. This is a single exercise. If we could install these 150 towers, this could be the people that we could send an alert. As I have explained before, we should focus in local. And this is only a simple exercise related with the population density. Obviously, we have to do bigger analysis and strengthen this proposal, but this is what we want to do. Unfortunately, in our region, we do not have the advances that you have in Korea. For example, like everybody has access to a mobile, a cell phone, and not everybody has access to internet. So we have to focus in this moment with vulnerable communities in at least starting with this kind of warning. And towards the sustainable development of the Caribbean Sea for present and future generations, we know that approximately 135 million people depend directly on the resources of the Caribbean Sea. This involves activities like fishing industries, tourism, transport, oil, among a lot of economic activities in the whole region. It has said before, I am not going to talk a lot about this, but the biodiversity and the resources that we have in the Caribbean, it's amazing, it's wonderful, and we need to preserve them for future generations. This is why ACS seeks to report on the analysis of the implications of the designation of the Caribbean Sea in the context of sustainable development. If we don't do this now, when? To achieve a better understanding of public policies, we need to update the consultancy report that we had from 2014 to incorporate the implications, legal, financial, economic, environmental. We have to include climate change and also pandemics, because the designation of the Caribbean Sea as a spatial area in the context of sustainable development need to focus in blue economy and establishing measurable actions for this implementation. What is the scope of this consultancy? We want to analyze the validity of the proposal of this designation We also want to identify the potential opportunities, benefits, and challenges for the whole region. We want to analyze the impact of ACS membership. We also want to analyze the social and economic impact of the well-being in the population, analyze the cost intended to the sustainable management of this designation, also analyze the environmental impact, the regional benefits, and the most important, as I have told you since the beginning, we have to include the opinions of local population, especially coastal population. For this study, or updating this study, we have estimated a cost of $1.2 million. And the Sandy Shorelines project, I would like to talk to you a little bit, only a little bit because I do not have enough time, about this excellent project that we are developing thanks to COICA. The Sandy Shorelines project, its principal objective is the establishment of a monitoring network to measure the impact of climate change in the beaches in this first stage in 9 different countries in the region. The first component is the focal point network. We have established a network including 9 countries. The capacity building, we also have organized different courses and activities related with this technical project. The monitoring network, that is one of the most important components in this project, we will deliver some specific equipment to do this measure in the beaches. In a parallel way, we are working in the beach rehabilitation projects. We have established, we are going to work in 3 different countries, in Panama, Antigua and Barbuda, and Trinidad and Tobago. Once we have finished these projects, we are going to integrate a beach rehabilitation manual, and at the end, we will organize an international conference, and I hope that all of you can participate in this huge effort. As an example, last September, we had the 6th focal point meeting of this network, where the focal points presented the advances in the progress and the next steps to establish the monitoring network. At the same time, we start to work in Panama in Viento Frio Beach, and the most important for us is that the local community know what are we doing, how are we doing, and which is going to be the benefit for them. Because let's remember that sometimes the local activities are also increasing the impact of the damage in the beaches. Another example that you can see in this moment is the Jamaican Video Monitoring Network Tower, and this was established in the Hellshire Beach. As its names say it, we built this with NEPA, this tower to monitor the beach and its behavior. As I have said, we can achieve this only together. We really appreciate the effort that Korea is doing to help us and also to transmit the knowledge. And we are convinced that we can improve the resilience of our whole region. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for your presentation. We were able to see the severity of the climate impacts on the Caribbean and also the efforts within the ACS to respond to this, especially the multi-risk warning systems, as well as the various efforts to enhance your sustainability. Thank you very much. You also mentioned the efforts initiated by COICA and the efforts that we are doing to enhance the coastline resilience through monitoring, and only together was extremely impressive. And I hope that Korea will continue its efforts so that we can go together. Now let's move on to the next presentation, which will be delivered by Dr. Lee Yong-sup, Director of International Cooperation at the Korea Meteorological Administration, KMA. He will be giving a presentation on the international cooperation for climate change response. Let's give him a big hand. Good morning. As was introduced, I am Lee Yong-sup, Director of International Cooperation at KMA. It is a great pleasure for me to give this presentation on behalf of my administration. I will be focusing on KMA's international cooperation for climate change response. I will be covering the background, then weather and climate services, international cooperation activities, as well as the current status and future vision of KMA. As you're well aware, global warming has led to climate change, and extreme weather events are happening, and they are threatening our lives and livelihoods as never before. And there is, therefore, an urgent need for us to expand our cooperation on responses within the meteorological community, as well as a greater need for the role of the meteorological administration within each country to safeguard its interests. Because of severe weather events, all countries are going through a lot of difficulties, and this has been mentioned as a priority in all summit meetings around the world. Korea is not free from these threats, and the Korean government is also doing its utmost for not only for national development, but also to protect our people and their resources from the effect of natural disasters. The same goes for the Caribbean region, because in a 2011 report, it says that because of deforestation and other events, hurricanes and storms are becoming all the more severe in this particular region. In order to respond to climate crises, information is extremely important, and therefore we are expanding our collaboration. Meteorological information also links to other regions, such as areas such as tourism and leisure management and so forth, because all of these sectors understand the importance of meteorological information and data, and we also know the importance of the data that we have and the impact that it can have on various sectors. Now let's move on to weather and climate services. Now, we need science and technology and great capabilities in order for us to forecast weather. And what we need to do, first of all, is to observe weather patterns. We need a lot of systems as well as equipment to do this in a 3D manner. For instance, we have a terrestrial observing system. We have about 600 or so equipment, and every minute we have information about not only the pressure, but the wind and also the rainfall and so forth. And this 3D data is collected into a centralized center and it goes through a supercomputer. The various formula is extremely important, but accurate forecast is made possible not only because of these mathematical formula, but also because of the expertise and decision-making of our experts. It is still a very important factor, and our forecasters need to be supported. We have a customized analysis system for these experts, and it includes an integrated data analysis and automatic monitoring and automatic forecast and warning production. Also, the forecaster's analyses is being dispersed throughout the various agencies' administrations. Based on their judgments, the Korean public is receiving the related news, and all the information produced is provided to media, newspapers, and all of the related agencies. It's also updated in real time onto our KMA website. When there also is a warning that we need to send out, it is provided through mobile app services to the Korean public. Of course, it is automatic, and we also send out these messages through KBS, the state-owned broadcasting network. Also, our international cooperation activities. As was already mentioned, global response is very important because territories are obsolete in face of weather patterns. And so international cooperation is essential, particularly in the case of countries of vulnerability. The KMA also supports the SDGs, and also as an executive country of the WMO, we support its various programs. We also work on various international cooperation initiatives to support the Green and Digital New Deal project of the Korean government. This map shows the activities that we have conducted. We have collaborated with about 12 countries since 1998 on 32 projects. Most of these countries are focused in Asia, about 80% or so, followed by Africa and Oceania. But we hope to expand this collaboration to countries within the Caribbean region. Also, the areas of our ODA projects are focused on areas such as satellite analysis systems and automatic weather stations. And in particular, you can see that automatic weather stations and satellite analysis systems are two particular areas in which the recipient countries have shown the most interest. Through this, we are able to strengthen the recipient countries' capacity to early warning and response. Now I'd like to move on to some of the ODA projects and focus on some of our best practices. Now, observation is a must, and so we have supported various countries so that they may modernize their observation networks and capabilities through the installation of automatic weather stations. Through this, they have a system through which data is sent real-time every 1 minute, and this data can be used by the recipients' countries. Mongolia has completed a project, and Cambodia is also underway. And Myanmar has also completed a project. Next is the early monitoring and warning of weather events using satellite. In 2010, we launched our own missile, satellite, and we had a second satellite that was sent up several years later, as you can see on this screen. These satellites enable you to monitor not only small weather events, but also global events as well. It can show you early on how various storms are moving, but also can be used in other areas such as precipitation, fog, dust, so that you can see how various crises will arise. And we are supporting Bangladesh, Cambodia, and other such countries. Last but not least is what we call the TOS, the Typhoon Operation System. I think it would be a hurricane operation system in the case of the Caribbean countries. This is a holistic system that provides an integrated platform for typhoon operation procedures and includes an analysis, forecast, statistics, and training modules. Through this, you are able to monitor the development of typhoons. And we're currently working with Laos so that they can enhance their related capabilities, and we feel that the results are quite good. On the lower side of the slide, you can see our analysis through TOS about how the Son Thin tropical cyclone, hit that particular region. I think that this could be very helpful to monitor not only typhoons but also hurricanes, to which the Caribbean region is susceptible. And I think it will be very useful if we are able to collaborate to build this kind of a system in your region. Also, the KMA has various education and training programs, and we are partnering with countries to provide them with our know-how. From 1998, we have trained more than 1,000 experts over 90 or so countries, and many trainees, also from the Caribbean, including Dominica, have come to take part. They have learned how to use radar operation and data utilization, also ICT for meteorological services. And this year, because of COVID-19, we had an online training service, but this is an extraordinary situation, and we would like to continue with our offline training if possible. This is the last slide. I think our agency has a lot of strength because we have cutting-edge capabilities. It is a very stable and efficient system, and we also have the technology to develop an independent system in 9 years. And we also have a forecast analysis capability that was gained from experience. We also have more than 130 excellent forecasters that are able to adapt and respond quickly to the various changes. However, we do not wish to rest on our laurels. We will continue to work on various future-oriented technologies such as cloud seeding, and we also want to enhance the impact-based forecast, which predicts not only meteorological phenomena but their impacts on various industries. And also, we want to focus on smart city, which will provide weather information customized to people's lives. Also, we will focus on AI forecast, and through this we will take the lead in new technology. Through my presentation, I covered various areas of our capacities as well as how we are supporting various countries. And I hope that in the future, we will be able to work with meteorological cooperation with the Caribbean region in establishing various warning systems and so forth. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Dr. Lee from KMA, for your presentation. We were able to learn about the international cooperation project and best practices, including the infrastructure establishment and early warning satellite So using satellite for early warning system and also tropical typhoon forecast and monitoring, and these best practices were introduced in his presentation. But as he mentioned at the end of the presentation, their activities are mainly focused on the ASEAN countries and through WMO and other international organizations. But as Anna mentioned in her presentation, the Caribbean region is also exposed to hazards, and they are trying at the ACS to build this multifaceted hazard early warning system. And this is, I believe, where we can collaborate. We may start in a small scale, but we can expand our cooperation with the Caribbean region in this aspect. Thank you for your presentation. Let's move on to the final presentation of the session, which will be provided by Dr. Hyungju Kim, Director General of the Green Technology Center, and he's going to be discussing the prospects on Korea-CARICOM cooperation, focusing on green project development. Please welcome him with a big hand.
So, hello everyone. My name is Hyungju Kim from Green Technology Center, which is a government-affiliated research institute specialized on green technology policy and global cooperation. Today, I would like to focus on how and what we develop a green project. And I hope you could get some insight from my short presentation. Next, please. The content is on first the global climate crisis, which was already discussed today morning, and also I would like to give you three very specific cases which was done by GTC and many other stakeholders. And I would like to give you also some perspectives on global cooperation in the part of sustainability, and also give you some suggestions. Next, please. Yeah, next. I'd like to give you some video clip, please.
기후 문제에는 국경이 없습니다. 선진국과 개발도상국이 서로 다른 경제사회적 여건을 이해하며 연대해 나가는 것이 매우 중요합니다. 선진국들의 과거처럼 산업화와 경제성장을 위해 화석연료에 의존할 수밖에 없는 개발도상국에게는 탄소 중립의 길이 매우 어렵습니다. 선진국들이 지원을 늘려 개발도상국의 부담을 함께 나누어야 합니다. 한국은 국제사회의 연대와 협력을 높이기 위해 선진국과 개발도상국을 연결하는 가교 역할을 하겠습니다. 선진국과 함께 기후위기 대응에 적극 동참하면서 지난해 한국 송도에 문을 연 기후기술센터 네트워크 협력사무소와 녹색기술센터를 통해 개발도상국의 친환경 기술을 확보할 수 있도록 돕겠습니다.
Yeah, we have talked a lot this morning about the climate crisis problem on the globe, especially in Caribbean countries. And most of these countries are in island environment, and therefore they have more sea level rise problem, the storm, flood, and many other connecting problem induced by this kind of weather and climate crisis. Next, please. The Korean government, especially the MOPA, Minister of Foreign Affairs, are setting up strategy for next 4 and 5 years. And the focus is on we would like to concentrate on the ODA program on in green project, and the Korean government would like to enhance the green project portion up to 20% of all ODA program. And the GTC was partly involved in this kind of a strategy setting, and maybe as the Caribbean countries are main the recipient countries, we are expecting to more collaboration in this kind of green project. Yeah, next please. Yeah, and I'm engineer background, and I would like to talk in detail and operation level. And GTC is a relatively small organization. However, we are collaborating many of countries, international organization, and private sectors. And many of our projects, unfortunately, focused on Asia Pacific area. However, we are expanding our capacity to Latin America, Caribbean, and also African countries. Next, please. My first example is the IoT technology to monitor and predict of flood and water level rise at the Mekong River basin. And we would like to monitor and predict more concisely and more detail in this kind of area. And we are working with the Vietnamese government officials as well as Korean big size IT providers. Next example is green building, and I think that many of the Caribbean countries are island environment, and the main source of energies are imported from mainland, and the form of the energy are still fossil fuel based. Therefore, we need to change this kind of fossil fuel based energy to clean and sustainable electric based energy. And this is a part of this kind of story. And a few years ago, we started to work with the Mongolian government. They have a severe weather problem because of the coal for their warming up their environment. And we started to work on the local environment analysis, and also set up the public-private partnership strategy and the performance analysis on building level. And finally, we tried to get optimal technology combination, which are very much optimal for Mongolian environment. Next slide, please. You can see here some of the example of technology we are applied to the Mongolian green educational examples. And of course, the SIDS countries and the Caribbean country, you need more specific and somewhat different kind of technologies. And we needed to examine, evaluate, assess, and test. And then this kind of optimal solution, we could expand to national level and the regional level. Next, please. And this is the example. And we, at that time, we found the solution and consulted with the local expert, government officials, and we set up also expanded expansion plan with the multilateral development banks. And this is the example that we are pleased that at that time, as a result, 330 green educational buildings were constructed on the basis of our work. Yeah, next, please. This is my final example, and which was conducted in Honduras. And they have 3 main islands there, and we had planned to set up renewable-based microgrid system for their greening of the island. And at that time, on the support of Korean Action Bank, on the Inter-American Development Banks, we have identified the pathway, the carbon-free island of the Guanaja in the Bay Island area. Yeah, this is the somewhat detailed information, and we focused on the second largest island, Guanaja, and finally, we set up the about 30% penetration of electricity with the renewable power plus energy storage system. And next, please. And also, we had several meetings in Honduras and also here in Seoul and Jeju Island, which was our showcase of Green Island. And we had a diverse discussion on Green Island itself or other kinds of green project with Honduras, with Korea. Yeah, this is the highlight of a roadmap to carbon-free island. Phase 1, about 32%. Phase 2, about 60% with wind turbine, ESS, and photovoltaic. And finally, we have a plan also, the phase 3 to carbon-free island. Thanks to the support of our IDB colleagues and the World Bank colleagues, luckily we have got the Honduran government have got the fund, grant fund from Climate Investment Fund, about $6.4 million, and they have started now construction of the first phase of carbon-free island. Next, please. And in addition to Korean ODA program in my organization itself, and also the one private sector company, the second phase of carbon-free island, and we are just started this summer for Guanaja Island microgrid expansion. And the GTC is focused on microgrid, green business model, and sustainable operation strategy, and also the diversification of renewable energy and also the expansion strategy to Central America and also Caribbean island countries. Yeah, and on the basis of these operative examples, I would like to give you some examples on perspectives. Next, please. And as His Excellency Jiangmen indicated that the GCF is very important for the expansion of this kind of technology. In UNFCCC, we have 6 different pillars, and we are very close with working with CTCN, which is a technology mechanism, and also we are working with financial mechanism, GCF. And with the responsible ministries, we are working with the very diverse Korean national technology provider, the finance provider, consulting companies, and the public sectors, and of course the financial institution. And our main job is to identify the local needs and matching the Korean technology and design the project and working with the appropriate stakeholders. And this is 3 different examples how we can scale up our model, our concept, and our feasibility study result. And the first channel would be the financial mechanism, and the second example would be the KOICA and our MOPAs, other kinds of ODA programs. And the third important thing would be the carbon market, which was this month in Glasgow. We had big steps forward on carbon market, and we are now diligently studying how we can help our global community with the carbon market. And this is the overview of our networks. Technology level, public and the private sectors, institutions, and also UN and the international organizations, and the Korean national research labs, and the public organization, NGOs, and each different kinds of project ideas. We are working different stakeholders. And this is like artworks. Yeah. And finally, in this slide, I would like to finish my small presentation. Next, please. I have written here the many kinds of text, but this is too detailed. And I want to just highlight, we need to identify your needs and what kind of technology we, Republic of Korea, is better than other kind of providing entity. And we are having passion to connecting this kind of 2 needs, and in detail, technology level, finance level, and the policy level, and the infrastructure level. Most important is a policy, how your countries are adapting this kind of new technology. And yeah, more details, sorry, we can talk later. Thank you very much.
Yes, with that, we have heard from Dr. Kim, and we heard how they are collaborating with other partners at the GTC. And also, thank you for sharing your vision to collaborate with the Caribbean. The Guanahana collaboration, the microgrid project in Honduras, as well as the carbon-free island projects were quite impressive. And I think that these particular examples are important because it will be a good opportunity for us to build bridges with the region, and I hope that we will be able to see more such collaborations in the future. I think we have come to the end of the session. We are a bit on time, actually 10 minutes earlier than we had scheduled. I think we'll leave the Q&A for the end of all of the sessions. And so let me just give a couple of comments before we close. We have looked at the various challenges and risks, hazards at the Caribbean region. And also in the presentations, we have heard from our Korean partners to hear how Korea could collaborate. And also we heard from ACS and heard from their experiences. There were lots of ideas, proposals put on the table in this morning session. But as Vice Minister Choi Jong-gun mentioned, and also underscored by the ambassador from Barbados, it's very important for us to take all of this talk and dialogue and translate it into action. There have been many significant proposals, and we have identified areas for collaboration, and I truly hope that they will all be translated into actions, and we will do our part from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to make sure that this happens. Also, there's room for all of the other partners, such as the civil society and businesses as well. From Jamaica, the Undersecretary mentioned the importance of climate finance and the difficulties that the Caribbean members are facing with regards to accessing climate finance. As our Vice Minister mentioned in his opening speech, we have established the Caribbean Cooperation Fund, and through this particular fund, we will be providing lots of cooperation, and we hope that there will be lots of projects that come out from this, particularly towards climate response. Of course, there will be more ideas that will be put forth in the following session, so we look forward to those discussions also. Anyhow, in the first session, we focused specifically on our collaborative response to climate change, and I think that we have covered a lot of ground. We have found some common understanding and shared some common visions as well. And in that regard, I think it was a very meaningful discussion. I would like to take this opportunity to thank the presenters as well as to the audience for being with us. If you have any questions, please hold on to them. We will address them at the end of both sessions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And that brings us to the end of session 1 with Chair, Director General Choi Jong-wook, and presenters online. We had Her Excellency Alison Stone-Roof, and on-site, Director Anna Ramirez, and also Doctors Lee Yong-seop and Kim Hyung-ju. Please let's give them another round of applause. Thank you very much. And with that, we will now take a 5-minute break. The time is now 10:24 a.m. So please come back inside and be seated. We will begin session 2 at 10:30 a.m. We'll see you then.
like a circle that forms a harmonious entity of endless movements and changes. We have written a new history upon facing every crisis without hesitation, encountering new challenges with unity and reconciliation. Korea is a country with infinite possibilities. Our progress that has never stopped is moving toward the year 2030 for an encounter with the whole world. Out on the vast ocean, there is a light in the darkness. At the end of the sea, where the light emerges, lies Busan, an open city and the gateway to a continent. As a city with multiple cultures, we will always embrace a new vision and dream of harmony and coexistence to create a strong and wise society. Fearless in the face of change, Busan is tearing down geographical and cultural boundaries for an affluent and innovative era of convergence. We will share our wisdom from the past with the whole world and wait for a future where we can craft solutions and share life's lessons together. We are building the future for everyone today. Tolerance, peace, and wisdom. These are the values that we want to share with everyone. A coming together of people from all over the world for the coexistence and prosperity of the human race. South Korea's Busan would like to join in to create a new beginning.
World Expo 2030, where all countries will agree to cooperate and act on the great transition to an era of sustainability. Busan, Korea, a World Expo 2030 candidate city, will open a sustainable future for humanity and planet Earth. Korea, a country that made the impossible possible.
Korea, which was receiving aid, has been transformed into a developed country
And remarkably advanced from one of the world's poorest countries to a developed country in just a little more than a half century. The world's 10th largest economy, a leader in the 4th industrial revolution with innovative technologies, and home of highly valuable global brands. This is Korea. At the center of Korea's economic growth, there is Busan. From a shelter for war refugees to a cradle for future industries of the world and Korea, Busan has played a key role in driving national economic growth. A World Expo 2030 candidate city, Busan, Korea, will be a bridge between developing and developed countries for understanding and coexistence. Busan, Korea is setting a new global standard for soft power.
The courage of journalists who did not turn a blind eye to the truth has led
Korea is widely recognized for its soft power in many areas, including press freedom
Parasite
and Korean culture. Busan is at the epicenter of Korean soft power. It is a city of K-content, culture that represents Korea, and is emerging as a global hub of arts and culture for the future. Busan, Korea hopes to extend the value and share the experience of soft power with the world through World Expo 2030. A gateway city connecting Eurasia and the Pacific, and the world by sea and sky. A center of global logistics and cultural exchange, a beloved marine tourism city, and a favorite of the MICE industry. In 2030, a new future of humanity and planet Earth will unfold. A great transformation where dreams come true and despair turns into hope begins here in Busan, Korea. Sustainable living with nature, technology for humanity, and platform for caring and sharing all start here. Busan, Korea will take the lead at the forefront of transformation to a brighter future. Transforming our world, navigating toward a better future. World Expo 2030, Busan, Korea.
A coming together of people from all over the world for the coexistence and prosperity of the human race. South Korea's Busan would like to join in to create a new beginning.
All right, we will now begin session 2, titled Exploring Sustainable ROK CARICOM Cooperation Fund Projects. Once again, please allow me to introduce our chair, the moderator, Mr. Yoon Chan-sik, Director General for International Cooperation at the Ministry of Health and Welfare here in the Republic of Korea. Please welcome him with a big hand. And now the session 2 speakers. Online, we have Dr. Joy St. John, Executive Director of the Caribbean Public Health Agency. Dr. Joy St. John will be joining us online and here on site. Please welcome Mr. Ansari Hossein, Manager of Science, Technology and Innovation at the Caribbean Agricultural Research and Development Institute. And from Korea, we have Dr. Kim Tae-woo, Chief Executive, Office of External Affairs at the Seoul National University Bundang Hospital. Please give him a warm hand. And last but not least, Dr. Kwon Tae-gyun, Director General of Technology Cooperation Bureau at the Rural Development Administration. Please welcome him with a warm hand. And I will now pass the mic over to Director General Yoon Chan-sik. The floor is yours.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. And I'd like to welcome all of you from the Caribbean region. After following the first session, we're going to have the second session on the topic of exploring sustainable ROK CARICOM Cooperation Fund projects. I am Yoon Chan-sik, Director General for International Cooperation at the Ministry of Health and Welfare. I'll be serving as the moderator. It is my honor to be serving this role. In particular, we have wonderful Caribbean cultures, including salsa, and I understand that people from the Caribbean region are warm-hearted, so I'm very happy to be with them as well. In this second session, we're going to first hear from Dr. Joy St. John, Executive Director of the Caribbean Public Health Agency, for his presentation. And then there will be presentations by Dr. Kim Tae-woo from the Bundang Hospital. And he's going to be discussing the hospital's role in strengthening healthcare cooperation in the Caribbean. And the third presentation will be provided by Dr. Kwon Tae-gyun from the Rural Development Administration to discuss the digital agriculture in Korea. And finally, we're going to invite Mr. Hossein, Manager of Science, Technology and Innovation from the Caribbean Agriculture Research and Development Institute for his presentation and promoting cooperation towards building a more resilient agricultural sector. It is our pleasure that we have 4 wonderful experts, and I look forward to their presentations. And this forum or this venue is home to our participants, and I hope that you will feel relaxed and comfortable and enjoy this session. First, I'm going to invite Dr. Joey St. John for his presentation. Please welcome him with a big hand.
Thank you for this opportunity to speak at the 11th High-Level Forum on the Republic of Korea-Caribbean Partnership. And I am going to speak to you about the Caribbean-Korea cooperation on public health towards sustainable development. So these are the areas that I wish to cover. I will give you a little bit about the current partnership, what we are proposing to do, and what are the opportunities because of what we hope to do shortly, and how we're going to be supporting through the Korea funding for building resilience in the health sector. And then I'll end with CARFA's commitment in this whole cooperation. So the current cooperation, the MOU was signed on the 13th of July of this year with CARICOM to purchase personal protective equipment for 9 CARFA member states and CARICOM member states. And this is valued at US $400,000. The funds have been received, and this is what we are intending to do. And we have already started procurement so that these countries here listed will receive medical protective goggles, ICU gowns, and non-skid shoe covers. So distribution will be underway once we get the items. And this is what we propose to do. There are 2 projects. One is a health system strengthening project with a budget of US $500,000. And we're expected to sign this shortly on the 1st of December. And all member states will be beneficiaries. The second proposed project is for strengthening health systems to address non-communicable diseases through multi-sectoral action. And this is a proposed budget of $338,606 US dollars, with several beneficiaries here listed. So the health system strengthening project, the areas of focus: training and field work, support for persons undertaking the Caribbean Regional Field Epidemiology Laboratory Training. Then, and I want you to look at the picture in the background, the annual maintenance contract to ensure that this lab pictured, the BSL-3 lab, is certified and available to perform tests for infectious diseases. This is a very important activity for CARFA. Then there is the purchase of Kingfisher Flex purification system. And this will reduce our time taken to test samples by 50%. We want to have 2 regional IATA infectious substance shipping train-the-trainer workshops, which will ensure that many more people can be trained. And then we want to conduct at least 1 national stakeholder meeting in 4 of the member states who have previously benefited from interactions with both the IDB and the Public Health Agency of Canada. So for the other proposed projects, strengthening health systems to do with non-communicable diseases, we want to strengthen the capacity of member states through multi-sectoral action to implement both global and regional commitments for the prevention and control of NCDs by 2030. Increase the availability of regional information on food and nutrient profiles for policy interventions to reduce salt, fats, and sugar consumption, and to increase public support for the agreed global and regional multi-sectoral public health policies for the prevention and control of NCDs. So what are the opportunities coming out of these proposed cooperative agreements? Assisting the region in the fight against NCD's epidemic, building effective communication systems and strengthening networks in communities of practice. So the Republic of Korea will support CARPHA and strengthen CARPHA so that we can continue to be effective and efficient in our role as a public health agency for the Caribbean. So I'm giving you an idea of the kind of trainings that we've done to see how the Republic of Korea's support can really expand. So we have done over 89 trainings and reached over 14,000 persons from 106 countries, including all CARPHA member states. And the trainings have included the FELTIP that will be supported, biosafety and biosecurity considerations for handling samples. Again, that's an activity that the cooperation will support. And let me go back to the previous slide. We have also trained in the use of personal protective equipment. So what is going to be received shortly by the member states, they already know how to use it properly. And to support the work with non-communicable diseases, CARPHA has started training on the guidelines on the management of diabetes in primary care, even during this COVID-19 pandemic. So the ongoing support with disease surveillance is proving to be the gateway to responding effectively to public health threats. There will never be a time when we do not need surveillance data for decision making, even outside of the pandemic. There are other diseases that we need to check the trends. So we need to ensure the increasing robustness of surveillance systems, and we want to ensure that there's greater reliance on the surveillance data from CARPHA that will be improved by our cooperation. So here is some of the activities and some of the strategies that we are going to be using for building resilience in the health sector. We're going to be focusing on ensuring that there's resilience to climate change. We are going to be supporting the member states in how they will provide social and financial protection. We are going to ensure that there's collaboration by involving sectors, which are really the determinants of health in the preservation of health, because we know that health on its own is not what determines the quality of the product or the types of threats and risks. So we have to involve the sectors that do affect health. And then, of course, the development of human resources for health capacities, the work with FELTIP refers. So what is our commitment for this entire body of work? CARPHA will continue providing fit-for-purpose public health assistance with the support of the Republic of Korea. We're really happy to be part of this collaboration with the Republic of Korea. So I would love to thank the government of the Republic of Korea for supporting CARPHA to collaborate on a range of issues of public health interest. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the wonderful presentation. Please give a big hand to Dr. John. So in her presentation, she discussed humanitarian assistance provided by Korea, and she mentioned about non-communicable diseases and how we can respond to them. And there was a proposal for a project. And she also discussed the importance of health system in relation to the COVID-19 pandemic, and we need to strengthen capacity. I am working at the Ministry of Health and Welfare, so I hope that there will be more constructive discussions during the panel discussion. Now I'm going to invite Dr. Kim Tae-woo, a world-class Seoul National University Bundang Hospital. So please welcome him with a big round of applause. Hello, everyone. It is my pleasure and great honor to be able to give a presentation on our hospital and what we've been doing. Please show us my slide. And so this is the content of my presentation. First, I will introduce SNUBH, our hospital. And I'm going to also discuss digital transformation assistance, which is our key initiative. So this is the overview of our hospital. In the middle, you can see these medical services center. There are two buildings, and on the left-hand side, we have the research building. On the right-hand side, we have the education building. And in between these buildings, we have the mountain, but there is a tunnel, underground tunnel, to connect these buildings. Next slide, please. Next slide. As you can see here, there's this walking tunnel, and so it only takes 2 minutes between the research building and the main buildings. And also there's a tunnel connecting between the main buildings and the education building. And we also have the skywalk to enjoy the beautiful nature. Next, please. We are actually the 5th largest in Korea, but we are only 18 years old. We opened this hospital in 2008, and at that time, what was interesting was that from the very beginning, everything was made digital. And because of this, SNUBH was able to grow very rapidly, and after 10 years, we built the second building, and then the research center and the animal testing center was created as well. Next, please. We have about 800 medical professionals, and we cater to about 7,000 patients, and 150 surgeries are conducted daily. Next. We are excellent in many different areas, but in particular, we have excellent specialization in terms of minimally invasive surgery. So for various cancer surgeries, including liver cancer and gastric cancer, we are able to conduct very minimal invasive surgery, and also liver transplant was also done with minimum invasion. So we have gained world-class recognition. Next, you can see the research center, and on the back, you can see the biomedical research center. We call this Healthcare Innovation Park. Next, please. And the reason why we call this the Healthcare Innovation Park is because it's not only a research facility for the hospital, but also more than 40 companies are operating in this building in collaboration with the hospital. So we are working in a collaborative manner to promote the development of the healthcare industry. And 5 of them are already listed, and then some companies are pursuing NASDAQ listing. These are research achievements. Each year, we have seen an increase in the research articles, papers, and the number of clinical trials increasing every year. And we have gained a lot of research grants as well. So last year, we were able to get more than $55 million of research grants. Next, please. In addition, the SNUBH has a global network and collaborate with various hospitals and healthcare institutions around the world. Next. In particular, the SNUBH has been collaborating with many countries in Latin America. In August, President of Colombia visited Korea, and during his visit, he visited our hospital to take a look at the digital systems and also other healthcare related industries, and he was able to see how the hospital is closely working with the private sector. And then after he returned to Colombia, he invited some of the guests from our hospital. So I actually was able to visit Colombia and met with the president, and I also had a chance to talk with the Ministry of Health and other healthcare institutions in Colombia to promote cooperation. And we were able to build this friendship with Colombia, as we have the Colombian ambassador, but Ambassador Juan Kaiser was very active in supporting this cooperation between our hospital and Colombia. So we have a very high level of cooperation underway. In addition, Peru, Argentina, and other Latin American countries were some of the countries we worked with, and we got the IDB funding for education program. And as we were carrying out this education programs, the COVID-19 broke out, so we had to switch to digital and online education. So as you can see here, even though these are online programs, we were able to invite heads of 47 hospitals in Latin America to understand how to improve hospital operation. Next. We have a number of educational programs. So we have the CEO Academy or Leadership Academy, and we also have the Clinical Observership and the Live Surgery program. And also for nurses, we have the Nursing Academy. Next. So for the CEO program, we have many participants from Russia. So more than 150 CEOs from Russia visited our hospital before the pandemic to receive training. And with IDB funding, we were able to invite CEOs from Latin America as well. And next, as I mentioned, we have excellent surgery programs. So many physicians and surgeons are coming to visit our hospital to observe the surgeries. Recently, we were not able to do so due to the pandemic, but before the pandemic, we have had many doctors coming from all over the world. And by using the simulation system, they can observe and they can try making a small incision to conduct the surgery. Next, please. And we have the Nursing Leadership Academy. This is a very active and successful program. So we have executive nurses from Russia. So 72 nurses have completed the program. Next. So we have the offline education programs, but because of the pandemic, we were not able to do so. So we have created a virtual environment to continue on with our education programs. So you can take a tour around the hospital, and so it's instead of the physical tour, this is a virtual tour of the hospital. Even though you're not able to physically come to the hospital, you can enjoy this virtual tour. Next, I'd like to show you a short video. And we have created many different programs, but starting from 22nd, please, can you play the video? So operation room and the hospital beds and also the desks. You can see this is a virtual tour, but if you use the head mount display for virtual reality, you can feel like you're actually there. So you can virtually enjoy all these systems in our hospital.
Changes in patient's condition. Nurses in rapid response team continuously monitors the patient's condition.
So this is an example of how virtual reality and digital technology is used for educational programs. Next, so this is a short introduction to SNUBH. Next, I'd like to discuss the Digital Transformation Assistance Project together with Colombia. So in Colombia, there's a lot of interest in digitizing their hospital operations. And as I mentioned before, when we were opening the SNUBH, we had this experience of turning everything digital in this hospital. So we have this experience that you were using to support Colombia's initiative. And this is basically about digital transformation in the hospital. Next, please. In the past, when you go to hospital, you would find that doctors would write notes on paper, and we don't have much of that anymore in Korea, but in many hospitals around the world, they still use paper. But the first stage is to develop electronic medical or electronic hospital record system. It's not just about digitizing hospital or patient records, but there should be much more than that. So we call this Hospital Information System, HIS. This is much more than the EMS system because it has everything, all this information about patient, and also it shows for how long a particular patient was hospitalized. And by using this data, you can conduct research and you can also use data for better hospital operation. It's not just for doctors per se, but patients are able to access their own medical data on the smartphone. So it is a comprehensive information system for the hospital. Next, please. Not only inside the hospital, but also outside of the hospital, doctors are able to refer to patient information. They can place orders, they can engage in discussions, and also they can project patient data onto a large screen for collaborative discussions. And also the patient is able to access his or her own medical record and is able to consult the doctor. And the IoT era, with the IoT era, all these devices that patients are wearing are connected to the hospital information system. So while patients are outside of the hospital, still data can be collected and they're merged with patient data. Next. So it's not only inside the hospital, but it can be extended to be connected with other hospitals. What you see here is the electronic ICU system. And within Gyeonggi province, we have hospital facilities that are located in rural areas. Our system is connected to these hospitals. So when there's any serious case, our professors, our doctors are able to watch CCTV footage and refer to the medical records coming from this local hospital to coordinate treatments and what action should be taken. So, and we have this certification system, and it is done by HIMSS, and we achieved the 7th stage 10 years ago. And then we were re-certified once again recently. And other than the US, our hospital is the first hospital receiving HIMSS level 7. Therefore, our system is widely used not only in Korea but also in the US and Saudi Arabia, and in Europe and Japan. We're underway. We're in the process of exporting our solutions. So this hospital information system, why is it important? If you have the system, it is much easier and more efficient to take care of your patients, and there is a high level of quality and safety assured. When there is a prescription done by the doctor, dosage is really important. As a doctor, you may make a mistake of prescribing 10 pills instead of 1 pill. Then the system is able to detect that there's something wrong and there's anomaly, and this can help prevent any medical accidents. And with the accumulation of data, you can use data for education, and you can also use this data for bioscience and pharmaceutical companies. And the information system itself can promote the development of the ICT industry. And at the national level, if you can have all these data coming from different hospitals, you're able to prioritize your investment in the healthcare sector at the government level. So I believe that this type of data is crucial for the government as well. And when hospitals are able to share patient data, then we may be able to reduce any redundancy or overlapping treatments, and thus we are able to reduce healthcare costs of the entire society. Next, please. And it takes quite a lot of money, actually. Investment is needed to develop this type of healthcare information system. So let's say 20 million or $30 million are needed. So it's quite costly. But together with IDB or other funding institutions, including EDCF, you may get some additional funding to establish this information system. And initially, the outcomes would be materialized at the hospital level. But if we have this system successfully in place, then the system and the data can be utilized for other purposes. And as a funder, you may feel that this is a very good this is a worthy investment. When you develop the system, you not only need medical professionals, but also IT engineers, and the government has to provide support. But I would say that at the bottom line is the actual clinicians and the medical professionals who are working at the hospital need to have a clear defined requirements. How can we develop an IT solution? They may not have much knowledge. IT engineers may not know what is needed at the hospital. So the hospital has to provide information. So it is crucial that the members of the hospital actively participate in this process. We know that they are already burdened with daily tasks. So it is not easy to involve them or engage them in the process. But based on our experience, we know that this healthcare or hospital information system is very, very important and very valuable. So we can provide them with motivation and incentives. And that's the role that our hospital is playing in this type of cooperation. So I'd like to make some suggestion as to what kind of collaboration we can carry out with the Caribbean countries. Next, please. As I mentioned before, digital transformation project is supported by our hospital. If there's any need for such a project in other countries in the region, then we will be more than happy to participate in that project and provide support. But the crucial starting point has to be that there should be the medical professionals and the staff members who really understand the need for such system. And also there should be IT system assistance. And the IT company that we worked with is interested in working in the Latin American or the Caribbean region. And if we are able to do that, then later we can expand the scope of the project to include EICU and advanced telemedicine. We have had prior experiences in all these areas, so we will be able to help you along the way. Moving on to the educational aspect, if you want to come to our hospital, then we're more than welcome. We have some fund that is available if there's any doctors or hospitals that would like to visit our hospital from the Caribbean, then we can provide support. And for instance, in Colombia, there was a nurse from a university, and she was able to come to Korea and stay for some time based on our funding. And during the COVID-19, we have the virtual online education programs, and you will be able to get some knowledge and know-how in terms of responding to the COVID-19 pandemic. Also, because of the pandemic, I understand that doctors are not really able to enjoy much training, but we can use online education program to assist these doctors. We're still going through the pandemic, and in order to overcome the limitations of the pandemic, we have created a metaverse lecture room. This metaverse was created for students of College of Medicine, and we're collaborating together with the Singaporean Engineering School. So we do simulation and we do these virtual activities. It's not only used for students, but also we provide professional education as well. And starting from 15 seconds, please play the video. You can see this metaverse realization of the operational room. What we are now pursuing is the creation of a virtual clinic platform where we provide telemedicine and we connect patients with appropriate hospitals. In those countries with a relatively less advanced medical system, there may be situations where they don't know how to respond to. Then they may not know where to go and what to refer to. And there are some brokers who don't have much medical knowledge. They may send patients overseas without really understanding the patient's situation. So to overcome this problem, we created the Hospital Alliance together with hospitals from all over the world. So if there's a situation, they can come to this virtual platform and they can receive consultation and advice. And there may be some issues that can be resolved right there. But if there's an operation needed, then we can find a hospital that is able to handle such operation. Next, please. So we have the UK, the US, Russia, the UAE, and recently Colombia are now joining in this Smart Hospital Alliance, and Argentina is included as well. So we have a couple of hospitals from these countries, and we are planning to expand this alliance to help countries with less advanced medical system to be able to get access to expert advice and expert consultation. So with that, I'd like to conclude my presentation. Thank you for your attention.
Yes, thank you for an excellent presentation, Dr. Kim. I'm sure that it was quite inspiring to the members representing the Caribbean region. The Colombian president personally visited that hospital, and I also happened to be there at the scene during the briefing, and it was quite honorable for me to be there. After this forum, the CARICOM delegates will visit this hospital, I understand. We welcome you, and it would be a great experience for you because I think that going on the field will be helpful for you to uncover areas of cooperation. So we look forward to that. Now let's move on to the RDA, the Rural Development Administration, which is leading the agricultural sector. The presentation will be done by Dr. Kwon Tae-byun. Let's give him a big round of applause.
Thank you so much for your kind introduction, and also it's a very great honor for me to be here today to explore some new collaboration with the CARICOM partners. For my presentation is focused on the digital agriculture, but we can expand any sort of collaboration in food and the agricultural sectors. So just a few cases of Korean experience and the knowledge. Actually, that nowadays you can find lots of evidence, even in this morning. Every Korean people looks very healthy because of the very good foods in Korea. Actually, that Korean government has strongly intervened on agricultural innovation for better life of Korean people. Now, 50 million people with just $1 billion investment for agricultural innovation. So my presentations will show a few cases with me. Next, please. You can see actually that who actually invented this smart farm in the world. Surprisingly, Korean, the kings ordered special production systems for the winter season. outside now it's very cold in Korea, but Korean people, especially in 1450s, long time, 500 years ago, they put that oil papers on the roof to get enough sunlight and also bottom heater system to keep warm. And the king's men could grow fresh vegetables and fruit even during the very chilly winter season. Chilly winter means the extreme weather for agricultural production already 500 years ago. That's a good idea for year-round productions. When the Korean economic growth, consumers ask us the year-round productions of fresh vegetables and fruit, even in the winter season. Actually, that on the benefit of the intensive agricultural R&D investment, now you can find that any fresh vegetables in the market as well as on your lunch table today as well, because of this strong public investment for the peoples. Actually, that nowadays 40,000 hectares for greenhouse agriculture. That actually this is not simple technologies. Next, please. At a lot of technologies put for the year-round production systems. That means that we actually met the big challenges of chilly winter. Even -5 Celsius degree, we can grow chili pepper from the Central America. It's that amazing technologies that you can find here. So some technologies, smart technologies, especially sensing and the control technologies to keep quite well environment for even tropical crops in the winter seasons. So everybody say climate change. Korean farmers have experienced lots of the technology already. We are ready to tackle climate against climate change. That is what I like to emphasize, especially this time, digital technology, mobile phones is very important to control the environment in the greenhouse systems. And actually that nowadays that also that renewable energy for heating up that greenhouses during the winter seasons. So we have the multiple technologies backed by the very scientific, genuine scientific findings, especially in case of chili pepper. That when we introduced chili pepper, that we could not use it properly in Korean dishes. You can find the chili pepper powder in kimchi, very tasty kimchi. It's actually that we can consume kimchi, very tasty kimchi, with the 50,000 academic publications by the Korean scientists. I can share this experience with you if you like. That knowledge, data for the better production, for better taste and the very safe consumption for chili pepper powders. Okay, next please. You can find that the smart farm nowadays, everybody says smart farm. I like to say digital farms in Korea, actually, that nowadays that young farmers like to control conveniently their production systems, even the voice. Young ladies can control the greenhouse using her voice. Just say, please, turn on the fan in the greenhouse. Please open the window. Maybe we don't need to put the please, just open the window. That actually that young lady's voice triggers to open the windows. That is what we like to say digital agriculture. And so we can accumulate lots of data for the best environment for crops in the greenhouses using the mobile phones as well. Now the young farmers can control her paddy fields, her or his paddy fields in Seoul, even 300 kilometers away over her or his paddy lands, especially controlling the irrigation systems. We like to use some digital technology for the convenience and the better productivity. Next, please. How about the livestock? Actually, that livestock also very important. Actually, that each the cattle has a certain specific biorhythms that digital technology can recognize the best time for the fertilizations or the milking, and actually then based on the images, data that we can control individual cattle for better productivity of milk, as well as that the fertilizations, maybe the mating, the mating for the healthy cattle also. Thank you. Next, please. Let me share that one actually Korean experience on soil information systems. Actually, that when we initiated agricultural innovations, National Agricultural Innovation System, actually we got the aid from the other countries. At that time, that we collected the soil data since 1969. Actually, that then actually accumulated the dozens of years for the better productivity of the agricultural productions. That actually now it's ICT-based soil information portal systems to provide the farmers enjoy the best crop for their own soils, as well as the best fertilizations for better productivity. Actually, it's good technical recommendations provide more than that 20% productivity because of such so precise data for agricultural productions. Now we share this system with the South Latin American countries, especially that one Colombian scientist in this year actually was awarded by Korean president as a best collaborator. Because of that, he actually brought Korean experience to Colombia and modified for Colombian agriculture, now serving coffee and onion productions. Then what I like to enjoy his collaboration, actually, that he shared his experience with other Latin American countries. That is a wonderful case of collaboration with the Latin American countries. I like it very much. So I like to support him, Dr. Gustavo, actually, that he did great jobs, and I like to be the soil scientist in Latin America, leading for the, such soil information system in Latin American countries. That is actually, I promise to support him and support him continuously to get actually this useful system for Latin American agricultures. Next, please. How about this one? Actually, that climate change. That I do not like to talk a lot about the climate, meteorological methods, because the Korean meteorological administration is an expert. That we are not expert, but we made that tailor-made weather forecast for farmers, actually, especially tackling against extreme weathers. In Korea, actually, the early frost or late frost, it destroyed all crops in the fields. When we provided that early warnings for the extreme weather, for the farmers, sometimes save their farm productions totally, actually sometimes totally destroy without that early warning system, but with that early warning system, they can save more than sometimes 80% of their productions, especially for small-scale farmers. It's very useful for it. And we shared this experience with the Asian partners, 13 Asian partners, and actually that it's a very good measure for against the climate changes at this moment in our partner countries. Then actually that UNFCCC expert groups actually recognize this one actually the success model case for climate adaptations. Actually, that in this year actually they published this story on their expert journals. That I am very happy to see it, to share our experience with the partner countries. Next, please. E-commerce, yes, that today that nowadays I do not visit the supermarket. I am using e-commerce, even agricultural product. Every Korean consumer, if familiar with the mobile phone, can use order or buy any sort of agricultural product via e-commerce systems. That actually that we adopt very early that ICT technology for commercialization of agricultural product to the consumers. That actually that nowadays quite well set up systems for Korean consumers at this moment. Also the producers, farmers enjoy better incomes. That is what I like to see actually, the farmers, because it's a direct deals with the consumers. That's the wonderful systems for agricultural sectors. If you like that, this sort of the things can be the collaboration sectors with the Caribbean countries. Next, please. Actually, who did these jobs? Actually, mostly actually that many Korean scientists did, but the Korean government set up the special government organization called the Rural Development Administration, not the Agricultural Development Administration, Rural Development Administration, because in 1960s, as you know, the Korean GDP per capita is less than $100. Everybody under extreme famine and poverty. That time, actually, that the Korean government set up the special organization, Rural Development Administration. Now, each missions actually that agricultural research and development for Korean people, better life quality. Actually, that in 1970s, actually that RD provided the high yield staple crop rice, meeting self-sufficiency in 1977. We call it green revolution. Here you say that green and digital technology. Who owns the green colors? Who owns the green colors? Agriculture actually is green, because of that. Whenever we meet the self-reliance, we say green revolutions. Actually, that it's recognized by the UN Food and Agricultural Organizations. That actually the terms green means that agriculture. I like to insist that because that green revolution means self-reliance in staple food crops. Actually, that but now green technology that it evolved to the other sectors, but originally we say green revolution for food security. That actually that RDA now hires that almost 1,800 steps, including 1,200 scientists for agricultural science and technical innovations. If we like that, we actually covers all area for agriculture and the foods. With that, like that Department of Stores, you can choose any sectors for future collaborations. Next, please. now that all days focus on that digital agriculture at this moment. Now that we set the target of 13 main commodity for digitalizations. This hyper intelligence based on the hyper intelligence technologies with and also hyper connectivity from production to consumers. Now these 11 commodities will be digitalized for better productivity as well as more safe consumptions for the Korean people at this moment. That now some area is well digitalized at this moment, but still some area is just a little bit beyond. But all they will do for the future, next 10 years, this one for the from production to consumptions, that is actually that easy. Will be digitalized for the better production and the consumption. Next, please. So the ALDE has a very open collaboration, international collaboration systems together with almost 62 countries, including 52 countries for that, especially for that food security, where usually not enough agricultural innovation fund because that ALDE used Korean public funds to realize the public interest. So we are happy to share some public interest in even in partner countries. Now in Latin American countries, we set up the 5 Korea program on international agriculture. We sent Korean experts to there. At this moment, Ecuador, Dominican Republic, also the Nicaragua, the Ecuador, Bolivia, and Paraguay. I hope that we can see some point in Caribbean community as well in the near future. So another one actually that we ALDE set up that Korea Latin American food and agricultural cooperation initiatives covering that at this moment is 13 members for that one actually that project is the pre-hole the red bean project for better tolerance, more tolerance against the drought conditions. Because that, as you know, that frijol is the staple crop in Latin American countries. We like to improve the drought tolerance of frijol in Latin America. Another one actually for that, the technical competitiveness of coffee production in Caribbean, the Latin American countries, especially for small-scale farmers. That actually that now working well, and hopefully that soon we can see some scientific measures to boost the productivity in coffee and the frijol in Latin American countries through our project. Hopefully that some project can expand to Caribbean countries based on our experience. That is what I like to emphasize here. And maybe that sometimes if I mention about technical word or jargon to you, maybe you are boring. So that I will not mention about that something technical matters. Maybe tomorrow, the two people will visit the Rural Development Administration to discuss about the common interest for future collaborations. We are ready to show our Korean side's experience and the research fields. Then maybe that hopefully we can find some common interest for the future collaboration with the Caribbean communities. Thank you so much for your kind attentions. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the great presentation. We are running a little short on time, but thank you for your waiting. I'd like to invite Mr. Hossein from CARD for his presentation. So he's going to be the last presenter. So I'll give you 10 minutes. Thank you.
Hi, good morning, everyone. 10 minutes, you say. There's a benefit to coming last because I get to see everyone who has presented earlier. And I already see opportunities for collaboration between the Caribbean and Korea. When we first got the invitation to attend this forum, I did the usual procedure, which is to go on Google and search to see what agriculture in Korea looks like and opportunities for synergies and collaboration. And RDA came up automatically, first thing. And immediately I called the embassy in Trinidad and I asked them, set up a meeting, please, with persons at the RDA. So that meeting is actually set up for tomorrow. And I'm so glad I did, having seen that presentation just delivered, because I believe that is precisely what agriculture in the Caribbean needs right now. Injection of digital technologies to increase production and productivity in the agricultural sector. So quickly, promoting cooperation. My presentation today is promoting cooperation towards building a resilient agricultural sector. And CARI has long recognized collaboration and cooperation as a fundamental pillar in the way that we operate. It's in our strategic plan. We recognize that no one organization, no one person, no one country has the ability to do all that is required on its own. We must work together to get the job done. Next slide, please. Go back, please. The outline of my presentation is on the screen. I will just give a brief overview of what CARD is about, the state of food and nutrition security in the Caribbean, some of the opportunities and challenges that exist. We spoke a lot about climate change this morning, so I will try to run through a little quicker than what I wanted to today. I will also highlight some important aspects of regional agriculture development and identify some possible areas of cooperation. Next slide, please. So CARI was established in 1974, and it is the only institution mandated by CARICOM to service the R&D needs of the agricultural research and development needs of the Caribbean. We heard about CARICOM this morning, so I could skip that. CARI is headquartered in Trinidad and Tobago. We have offices in 13 other member states. So we have a physical presence in 14 countries in the Caribbean. We serve a collective population of around 6.9 million. I know that may sound small to you, but it's large to us. Next slide, please. Food insecurity in CARICOM Caribbean is characterized by several things. We have the issue of undernourishment and malnutrition. Data shows that undernourished persons declined from about 8.1 million in 1990 to 7.6 million in 2015. We also have two issues really, undernutrition and overnutrition. Data showed, FAO published a report earlier this year providing some up-to-date data for 2020. And that data showed that more than 70% of the persons in the Caribbean actually are affected by food insecurity, severe or moderate food insecurity. We find that in the Caribbean, food energy availability sometimes exceeds the recommended population for food energy guidelines, and therefore you have a proliferation of chronic obesity and chronic NCDs, non-communicable diseases. We have high incidence of high blood pressure in some countries, and so on. The food import bill in CARICOM currently stands at more than $5 billion annually. Most countries, all except Belize, Guyana, and Haiti, import more than 80% of their food. Next slide, please. Thanks. This slide just shows you some of the opportunities and challenges. agriculture development right now really is at the heart of the development agenda, particularly in light of the COVID-19 pandemic. You find a lot of countries giving a little more focus on agriculture and trying to encourage grow what we eat and eat what we grow. Some countries actually have that as a slogan. There is the opportunity for growth and expansion of markets for niche Caribbean products. We speak about cocoa, coffee, sugar, and so on, coconuts. There are advances in scientific research which could transform the research process on agricultural products. And agriculture is still a major contributor to the GDP of some countries, for example, Belize and Guyana. Now we have a wide number of challenges. Challenges range from what I mentioned, the increasing food import bill, declining contributions to some countries' GDP. We have, generally speaking, underinvestment by regional governments in the sector. You find that for the budgets of some countries, agriculture may generally get the smallest slice of the national pie. You find that there is some lack of competitiveness, probably linked to our smaller size and so on. Extreme weather events, I think this morning we heard a lot about that. Poor market access, inadequate transportation in country and of course between countries in the region, intra-regional transport, lack of agricultural innovation, and pretty lastly, that's the thieves, bandits who rob poor farmers of their produce. Next slide, please. Risks in agriculture, we have risk along the value chain. We have in different areas, we have production, marketing, finance, institutional, and human elements. I don't probably need to go into each of these. You could go on to the next slide, please. In terms of the impacts of climate change in the region, most of our states or countries in the region are highly susceptible to climate change. We are small islands. Most of us we have tourism and agriculture being the lead parts of the economy, and these are highly vulnerable. The IPCC, we heard earlier this morning, mentioned that the Caribbean will be impacted by several things due to climate change. We have sea level rise, changes in temperature patterns, changes in rainfall patterns, and increasing intensity of natural disasters. Next slide, please. So I'll just highlight a few here. Hurricanes, one of the major natural disasters to affect, natural events to affect agriculture in the region. It affects the crop, livestock, forestry, everything you could imagine. Climate change has and will continue to increase the frequency and the intensity in which these events occur. These are just some examples of the climate events and the countries affected and the impact on the agricultural sector to give you an idea of what happens in the Caribbean. We have Ivan listed there in 2004 affecting Grenada, Irma in 2017, Antigua and Barbuda, and it goes on, and it's in the publication that you could read at your leisure to get an idea of the impact, financial impact of hurricanes and other events. You could go on to the next slide, please. Floods. Floods is another major climate event that affects the region's agricultural sector, accounting for 70% of all weather-related losses. We have, again, floods in Guyana, Trinidad and Tobago. You could move on to the next slide, please. And then we have, next slide, please. Droughts. Most of agriculture in the region is rain-fed agriculture, so anytime you have shortage of rainfall, obviously it will affect agricultural production and productivity. We have, again, examples listed there, Guyana, Dominica, St. Vincent, and the Grenadines, and we have the agricultural impact listed in terms of banana, rice, and so on. And of course, more recently for 2021, we had instances of climate events and other events. They had the volcano in St. Vincent and the Grenadines affecting St. Vincent and also reaching as far as Barbados. You had the earthquake in Haiti. You had the first hurricane to hit Barbados in 65 years. You had floods in Trinidad and Guyana. So this impact of climate events is continuous, and we expect it to happen a little more regularly and with greater intensity as we move forward. Next slide, please. In terms of regional agricultural development, this is just giving an overview of what happens in the region. We have research and development taking place at the national level, at the regional level. The private sector investment also happening. What we find happening recently as well is a lot of cross-border investments. So you find Bajans will invest in agricultural production in Suriname. You'll find the Trinis going across to Guyana. You find solutions coming across to Trinidad. So you have a lot of cross-border investments, and that's what we really want. Because, as I said, we need to work together as a region to increase our production and to achieve our goals. No one country can't do it alone. We are too small. We have to work together. That's the whole purpose of CARICOM. Private sector investment. Recently, the Caribbean Private Sector Organization was launched, and it has a plan to reduce 25% of our food import bill by 2025. And it identifies profitable investment commodities, plans to develop investment profiles, and so on. Digitalization, we need that. We heard that a lot from RDA, and we need that in the Caribbean right now. The RDA also mentioned that it is also an opportunity. It can be used to attract youths to the sector. And in the Caribbean, we have a lot of persons who are a little higher on the age bracket. And we want to encourage youths to come into farming and come into agriculture. And one of the ways to do that is through the use and incorporation of digital technologies. Ease of trade, right now there are plans, there are not plans, there are activities being done to help remove tariff barriers and improve the transportation network. Next slide, please. Possible areas of cooperation. Next slide, please. Development of agricultural big data in the Caribbean. We actually have a concept note prepared on this one, and I could table it for persons who are interested. But it basically involves centralizing data and centralizing big data to help improve decision making amongst agricultural stakeholders, improves efficiency in detecting agricultural problems, providing real-time information to farmers by using trends and forecasts and so on. It helps in terms of policy development and decision making. Next slide, please. We also speak about establishing a biopesticide center. The region has a rich diversity of microorganisms, and we believe that we can tap into this to develop biopesticides. So we are hoping to identify, select, develop, and commercialize native biological control agents, and we also are working on a proposal on that. Next slide, please. In terms of plant genetic resource management, there's a need to conserve, protect, and best utilize our plant genetic resources in the region. There's a strong rationale for this network in the region, and this is part of our recognition and the global responsibility of humanity to safeguard the nation's germplasm, the region's unique germplasm. Next slide, please. In terms of animal genetic resource management, that also we have in the region, we have several breeding stations in different countries, in Barbados, Jamaica, Trinidad and Tobago, St. Lucia had one. I think they are building a new one. And we think that there's need for a regional one in at least 3 countries to ensure that if any climate event affects one, we don't lose every item we have in that germplasm collection. We also need, as part of that animal genetic germplasm bank, we also need to have a forage germplasm, which could be actually stored in the plant genetic resource germplasm bank. We also need to build continuous efforts to build capacity in animal breeding, genetics, and biodiversity management. Next slide, please, and this is the last slide. This is a listing of the areas of collaboration, and we have about 9 of them there. The first one, I believe, is having heard today and having met with Kyokai yesterday, the first one, I believe, is the strongest one in terms of candidate for collaboration between Korea and Caribbean in the area of agriculture. Digital agriculture, incorporating digital agriculture, precision agriculture, ICTs, smart farms, big data, and I could go on until speaking about robotics, drones, blockchain technology, virtual reality, augmented reality. I think that is what we need right now in our region's agricultural landscape. Soil and water conservation management is important. Protected agriculture links with digital agriculture again. Well, I spoke about the plant and animal genetic resource management, but given what has happened over the last 2 days and what I expect to see tomorrow, that one we could deal with that, put that on the back burner. Livestock farming technology, that also includes incorporating digital technology. Climate services, renewable energy and modeling, and we heard from the KMA this morning, and that too, I see as opportunity to collaborate among the 3 institutions in terms of that aspect. And also disaster response, remote sensing, disaster impact assessment on the agricultural sector. I think those are the areas that we could probably have more discussions on and try to develop a good proposal to move forward in a year or 2, hopefully. Thank you for your time this morning.
Let's give him a big hand. Thank you very much, Mr. Ansari Hussain, for that excellent presentation. If I may sum up this second session, we have heard that fundamentally the Caribbean region, in areas of health and food security and climate change issues, and also response to such crises, it seems that the Caribbean has capacities to respond to these issues. There are lots of island nations and states within the Pacific region as well, and I think that there are some similarities there as well. In the spirit of cooperation, I'm sure that we will be able to collaborate further. And I would like to take this opportunity to thank all of the presenters in session 2. I'd like to hand over the mic to the MC. Thank you.
And with that, we will wrap up session 2, where Director General Yoon Chan-sik served as our excellent moderator, and Dr. Joy St. John joined us online, and Drs. Kim Tae-woo, Kwon Tae-yoon, and Mr. Ansari Hussain shared their insights with us. Everyone, please give them another big round of applause. Okay, it is time now for the Q&A session. For this session, we have fielded questions from our online participants. We have narrowed them down to a few, and I will read them out on behalf of the online participants. So the first question is for Ms. Anna Ramirez, Director for Disaster Risk Reduction, Environment and the Caribbean Sea, ACS. So this is one question, but a bit of a warning for her. It is a long question. It is two-folded. So the first part, the ACS emphasizes the greater Caribbean. Is there a significant difference in the climate change, the extent of climate change experienced or witnessed between the East Caribbean nations, such as the Trinidad and Tobago, and the Central American regions, such as Honduras and Guatemala? So that is the first part. And the second part carries on. If there is a difference, then is there a difference in the way the governments and policymakers approach projects aimed at tackling climate change?
Thank you so much. Hello?
Yes, the mic is on.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much for both questions. Actually, climate change will have a huge impact in the whole region. That is the reality. Because these countries are surrounded by the ocean. And the problem that we are facing is that this is the region that one of the less or smaller carbon producer, but the region will receive the highest impact. That is the real problem. And this is related with the raising of the level sea. This is going to bring additional problems. For example, the water, the seawater will introduce to the internal sources of water. So one problem will increase the next one and the next one and the next one. Obviously, there is a difference between the continental countries and the island countries, but all of them will suffer the consequences of the climate change. And for the next question, definitely yes, there are too many approaches in the whole region related with the policies and the internal process related with this, trying to fight against climate change. Let's remember that we have the national plans, and all of these plans are different because the society is different. And additional to that, the interests are different. So we need to reinforce the multilateralism if we really want to achieve different solutions and a real, at least this region has to focus in this moment in adaptation more than mitigation. So I hope that with this I can answer the questions.
Thank you very much for your response, Ms. Ana Ramirez. Thank you very much. And the second question is for Her Excellency Rita Toussaint, Permanent Secretary at the Ministry of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs of Trinidad and Tobago. So these are two related questions as well. I will give them separately this time. The first one is, what is the significance of CARICOM to Trinidad and Tobago? It could be a rather philosophical question.
Thank you very much for the question. As a small country, Trinidad and Tobago, like other small countries around the world, relies on partnership with countries of similar background, similar experience, and it's mutually beneficial. It is a reliance on that partnership that I think supports Trinidad and Tobago as it does other countries within CARICOM. Thank you.
Okay, and I will continue on with the second part. What is the relationship between CARICOM Secretariat and its member states?
It's a very close relationship. We rely on CARICOM Secretariat for research, for guidance, for coordination of meetings, of positions, and not just within CARICOM, but outside of CARICOM in terms of other international or multilateral settings. We rely on them for that.
All right. Thank you very much, Your Excellency. And the third batch of questions is for Mr. Yun Tan-sik, Director General for International Cooperation at the Ministry of Health and Welfare. So we are aware that CARFA is promoting an education project for infectious disease experts. Is there a possibility of the Korean Health Ministry to send experts, Korean experts in the field to the Caribbean?
Yes, of course it's possible, but in this pandemic situation, we have the WHO and COVAX program. In these frameworks, we are collaborating with partners, and I'm sure that we will be able to enhance our cooperation in fields of health with the Caribbean region. We could send our experts and provide training of medical experts and build up medical systems and provide consulting as well. Our ministry includes and incorporates lots of associations such as the National Association of Health Promotion and so forth. We have lots of specialized affiliations and organizations as members. And there are members representing these particular agencies that are present. So I'm sure that there will be opportunities for us to send our officials over to you anytime.
Now, we have received further questions from our online participants, but due to time constraints, we will have to wrap up the Q&A session here. So we ask for your kind understanding in that regard. Once again, thank you very much to Director Anna Ramirez, Her Excellency Rita Tusong, and Director General Yun Chan-sik for taking the time to answer those questions. So with that, we will wrap up the... Oh, okay, so we have one more question from the floor. Yes, we will pass the mic over to you.
I'm Sung Choi, Honorary Consul of Trinidad and Tobago. I participated in the high-level forum on the Korean-Caribbean partnership from the first forum. And I am very thankful for the very rewarding presentation today. And due to the limited time, I would like to ask one question and one request. One of presentator was mentioning MO. This was the new word. Memorandum of doing instead of memorandum of understanding. I think this was a very good point. According to my experience on this level forum, you know, many attendants, you know, are impressed by this presentation, but the follow-up of this forum was not that rewarding, frankly speaking. You know, because of these various, I mean, how can I say? I mean, different languages. Even I cannot understand some medical phrase or agricultural phrase. So I wish the organizing committee makes a good report, both in Korean and English, so that we can understand these forum contents. Then more importantly, I think maybe you may forget this, the actual, I mean, partnership things for 1 year. I mean, this high forum is not the end of the forum. What I mean is that we have to follow up. So for that purpose, I would like to request the Caribbean, you know, representative to establish your representative in Korea. For example, I was going to request our permanent secretary personally to implement the agreement between Trinidad and Tobago and Barbados to establish representative of these two countries jointly. I read this through the newspaper recently, and so I hope to have chance to discuss this matter with you later on. But you mentioned that you also are interested in the new digital technology from Korea. I think this is the right approach, according to my experience. I've been the Honorary Consul of Trinidad and Tobago for 28 years. Since then, I mean, this change of our Korean society from the developing country to the developed country, officially announced this year, was due to our technological superiority over any other countries. So I know that many organizations are represented in China instead of Korea because of their I don't know what reasons, maybe because of the huge country, but I think you can learn more from Korea now. So I strongly suggest that you establish your representative office in Korea. Somebody has to be here to follow up what these distinguished speakers mentioned. I mean, after you leave, who can follow up? Only? No. You should have your own people right here in Korea to learn about advanced technology. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that comment. Would anyone like to respond?
Yeah, thanks for the comment. And I think I agree with you, obviously, but in terms of establishing a representative here, that is a little more challenging. In terms of CARDI, CARICOM, CARDI is a CARICOM institution, but we are not CARICOM. There should be a liaison officer at CARICOM who liaises with Korea. And I could suggest it to them and see what feedback could be had from their side. But I'm glad you agree with me on the digital technology, though. And outside of the Korea-Caribbean partnership, even if we could have some bilateral collaboration with the RDA, I think that too could be an option, depending on if we don't meet the criteria for qualifying for under this Korea-Caribbean partnership agreement. Yeah, thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. And on the note of providing more comprehensive support material in both languages, both Korean and English, thank you very much for your feedback. And we will definitely follow up so that in the next iteration, the 12th high-level forum on Korea-Caribbean partnership, we will do as you rightfully pointed out and provide more support materials in both languages and many other languages if need be. All right, so with that, we will conclude the Q&A session as well as the forum overall as well. Once again, I would like to extend my sincerest gratitude to all participants, presenters, speakers, moderators, and those joining us online and those who have shown active participation by asking questions. We hope the forum has provided you with valuable new information and valuable new insight on matters such as public health and climate change, the relationship between the Caribbean region and the Republic of Korea, and ways we can further strengthen the existing cooperative ties. We hope that you will take care, and the hope is that we will see each other again next year without masks on at the 12th iteration of the High-Level Forum for Korea-Caribbean Partnership. Once again, thank you very much and goodbye. 고맙습니다.